Chapter 258. The Freedom Alliance's base had been destroyed by a legendary boss. No one knew who the boss was. This kind of news was very welcome on the Dawn Forum. It was great news. As the Freedom Alliance went to the Emerald Grand Duchy first and established themselves there, many players who went later were bullied by them. These guys, who had the home field advantage, would often gang up on new players, stalk them, steal their kills, steal their equipment, and harass the female players. Now that the Freedom Alliance's residents had been massacred, not only did no one pity them, but they even gloated over their misfortune. The Freedom Alliance's players nearly went mad with rage. However, what made them even angrier was, not only did the officials not say anything. Instead, they posted their deeds on the front page with a big red caption: "The consequences of angering a legendary NPC. TSK. Many of the Freedom Alliance's players were so infuriated that they either abandoned the game or secretly joined other guilds. However, there were only around 20,000 of them. They didn't even have the money to buy a name card, so no one took them in. Of course, the players of the Freedom Alliance had very strong belief. Many of them would rather die than submit. As an outstanding and adorable legendary boss, William was someone who wanted to do great things. Naturally, he would not be calculative with the players. He just asked Eric, who was stationed here, to kill a wave of people when he had nothing to do. It was enough to kill them until they couldn't take care of themselves. He had to fight his way out of the Emerald Grand Duchy. Aren't these people arrogant? Then let's go to the kingdom. When the City of Dawn became a kingdom, they would continue to kill. They would see if the Freedom Alliance or the City of Dawn was stronger. If they had the ability, they would join a powerful force. Then, they would see if the City of Dawn dared to touch them. William's group of 6 was on the road to the Nightmare Forest. Along the way, they met many professionals with the same goal. They were very cautious and didn't talk much. This Nightmare Forest completely separated Lan Yu and Emerald Jade in the east and west. The forest area was very vast and continuous. In the north, it reached the border of the kingdom's forces, and in the south, it was close to the Sloran Duchy. Not only were there all kinds of magical beasts in this forest, but there were also many creatures of darkness. There were many dark sorcerers, vampires, bounty hunters, and even giant dragons who did not dare to show themselves. William also knew that there was a city that belonged to the dark forces in this forest. It was commonly known as the City of Darkness and nicknamed the City of Slaughter. The people in this city were not like Bernard's East Sea metropolis. At least, they still followed the rules of the human empire. However, the fellows of the Dark City did all sorts of evil, taking pleasure in chaos and destruction. They often sowed discord between other countries, or trapped and killed some genius professionals. William suspected that they were the ones who had spread the news about the blood fruit. This was because he recalled something. One of the 4 maps of the blood essence of the blood dragon was in the Dark City, and it belonged to a powerful vampire. If that's the case, then it'll be interesting. William pondered silently. In his previous life, during the early stages of version 3.0, most of the darkness invasion had been resolved, and the players no longer paid attention to it. After players entered the Emerald Grand Duchy, they discovered that the Emerald Grand Duchy, Lan Yu Grand Duchy, and East Sea City were on the verge of war. At that time, the players had no choice at all, nor did they have the time to investigate why the 3 of them were constantly fighting each other. He could only choose one of the 3 powers as the wager, just like in 1.0. Afterwards, he gradually lured out the Dark City in the Nightmare Forest. The players started to suspect that the Dark City was sowing discord in the dark. In any case, version 3.0 was a chaotic battle. Many factions were mixed together, and the players who were fighting for their lives were confused. They did not even know why they were fighting. Until the players understood the truth. They were working for a group of vampires. TSK. It's so heart-wrenching. William thought of the many missions in version 3.0. He felt that gods was a scam. But it had to be said. In the early stages of the game, gods had set up many traps for the players to train their thinking ability and adaptability. Most of the players would be skeptical when faced with a situation. They would not comment on it. Everything would be left to the end. Only then would they determine who was the good and who was the bad. Even when some things had been decided, many players were still skeptical. It could not be helped. They were afraid of being scammed. However, there were many stubborn people like the Freedom Alliance. Others could not deal with them, but William could do it on their behalf. Anyway, he could earn some experience points. Groups of professionals entered the eerie nightmare forest one after another according to the intelligence they received. Along the way, William saw many small teams fighting. He did not know if they were looking for blood fruits or fighting. However, the auras of the 6 of them were not weak, and the many professionals they met on the way were all noobs, so they did not encounter any trouble. At this moment, it was impossible to ride a horse. They could only walk until their legs turned to jelly. William and his companions got off their horses and walked. When they entered the nightmare forest, they could vaguely feel a sinister wind. Tisk tsk. Look at this fellow. He looks so smart. Violent Dragon pointed at a large spider with hundreds of eyes on its back. He stretched out his finger and let the spider slowly climb onto his hand. Gosh, let's go. Wales felt a chill down his spine and hurriedly bade farewell. The other 4 nodded and distanced themselves from Violent Dragon. It was not that the spider was powerful, but it was really disgusting. They did not expect a rough man like Violent Dragon to have such a unique taste. It's not normal, it's not normal. Everyone, be careful. This nightmare forest is strange. Try to follow the traces of people. They did not fly in the sky because the flying skills of the advanced professionals were too weak. Besides the winged people, the advanced professionals were living targets for the flying magical beasts in the sky. Burned Cinder surveyed the surroundings. He discovered that the trees in the nightmare forest were very strange. They were all black and the tree trunks looked like human faces. The withered branches were like the claws of monsters. Occasionally, their clothes would be caught by the claws, and it would definitely give people a scare. William nodded. There are very few green plants here, and there is a faint dark aura. This means that there are many devil's dens in this forest. There are definitely many dark creatures. The Tyrannosaurus crushed the 100-eyed spider that was biting his finger. Green blood flowed out from the gaps between his fingers. After he tossed away the exploded spider, he grinned crookedly and said, "The poison is really strong, but spiders are cute, but they're not very obedient." The others were speechless. They wanted to follow the map and go deeper into the forest. However, he heard an extremely miserable scream. Everyone looked at William. William raised his eyebrows and snapped his fingers. He gestured for them to go and take a look. The 6 of them followed the sound and slowly walked over. They saw a fellow who had stepped into a trap. That person was wearing a black cloak. Both of his feet had stepped into the trap at the same time. Fresh blood and white bones were exposed. His screams gradually became softer, and he seemed to be on the verge of death. But William and the others just watched. They were motionless. They did not have the heart to save the weak. They had no choice. It was obviously a trap. It was a trap. They were not idiot. They were all experienced bosses. How could they be fooled by such a small trick? As His Royal Highness waited impatiently, he still hadn't seen any enemies appear. He frowned and took out his legendary lightning bow. He released an arrow. The arrow, which was surrounded by lightning, instantly arrived. There was a loud bang. The humanoid creature hidden under the black cloak died on the spot, and he was completely exposed. It was not a human. It was a zombie monster that had been captured and used as bait for a trap. Violent Dragon and the others frowned. If they were not professionals who often faced dark creatures, they would not know that when a female zombie monster was injured, it would scream like a human. Meanwhile, More than 20 professionals, who were hiding in the dark, slowly surrounded them from the left and right. These people were the same as William and the others. They wore black cloaks and hid their faces under their hoods. They did not look like good people. William raised his eyebrows. He stood up and smiled. "We're all here for the blood fruit. We haven't reached the destination yet. Is there a need to fight to the death? Are we going to let others take advantage of us?" Many black-cloaked people looked at each other and laughed mockingly. In front of the 6 of them, there was a man covered in black flames. He kicked the zombie monster and tilted his head. He sneered and said, "Take off your equipment and space rings. Get lost." William and the others did not move. He used his insight. Although he could not see their detailed information, he could see their bloodline potential. The person in front was a legendary. There were 6 epic and 8 grandmaster bloodlines. The rest were advanced bloodlines. There were a total of 25 people. It had to be said. This was definitely a huge sum of money. But William seemed to think of something. Moreover, the person in front of him was covered in black flames. Why was it so familiar? He suddenly said, "Adolf." Once he said these 3 words, the atmosphere became strange. As for the guy whose body was burning with black chi flames, he was also a little stunned. I was recognized just like that? Was there a mistake? I'm in the Nightmare Forest, not in the Blackleaf Forest. Ever since he had been tricked twice in the Blackleaf Forest, he had come here. He had changed his name and surname. How could he be recognized? But Adolf was not the only one who was confused. William was the same. He had an epic bloodline. What treasure had he obtained to become a legendary? Could it be that the blood fruit was real? Or had he obtained it through other means? Was the news of the blood fruit released by them? Did they want to take the opportunity to kill him? After all, the occupation of bounty hunters was too shady. Everyone would rob them, regardless of whether they were in the light or in the dark. If there was a huge reward, they would kill their own people for the treasure. The 2 groups were in a standoff. They looked at each other in silence. But not long later. Then, a deafening roar sounded. Adolf and the others immediately ran over without looking back. They did not stay for a moment. William and the others looked at each other and followed. They wanted to see what kind of monster was inside. Could it be the guardian of the blood fruit? Chapter 259. It was true. Don't ask the NPCs how they knew about the Chosen Ones. Their understanding of the Chosen Ones was as good as the players' understanding of the Chosen Ones. Meituan Naiku and the rest of the lifestyle players ran away. They were not normal players after all. Where did Prince William go? Rampaging Dragon looked around. Just when everyone was feeling puzzled, a hole had been dug out behind them at some point in time. He did not want to see the elven prince, who had tricked him many times. The prince coughed lightly and continued, "Try to make the situation a little more chaotic and lure most of the trolls out. Oh, Burned Cinder, come over too. Wales will hold off the Guru Realm troll while you hold off the other trolls." When William saw this scene, his heart ached. Although he had hundreds of trolls in his hands, they paled in comparison to this troll tribe. William was surprised. "Of course, you'll be the bait. What about us?" Alec and the others asked. Hundreds of trolls gathered in the cave, and there was a bloodline fruit growing in the cave. Although their subconscious told them that this group of undead were Heaven's chosen ones, Heaven had only said that once. The trolls in front of them were not weak. They were not weak at all. But there was no video transmission in this world. The number of professionals here was actually in the hundreds. These chosen ones were full of evil interests. They were brave and cowardly. They could not die. Their corpses could be resurrected on the spot or at another location. What were these suicidal fellows doing here? Some mages had surveillance abilities. Even when the players were having sex in the house, they could not hide from them. Moreover, these fellows had the title of the City of Dawn above their heads. But it was not the professionals who had provoked them. It was the hundreds of players. I don't believe that anyone can scare me away. I'll hang myself in lava." Adolf laughed coldly in his heart. He had made up his mind not to retreat. Although the players' abilities were average, they were good at causing trouble. This group of unknown people seemed to have difficulty mating. It was as if a god had placed restrictions on them. The difficulty of mating was comparable to that of the elves. What was even more interesting was that after mating, they did not have children. When William saw this scene, he had a lot of question marks on his head. "Your dragon-slaying saber is just a little brother." William tugged at Whale's trousers and said, "Come in with me. I'll try to dig into the cave. You can hold off the troll leader while I steal the blood fruit." The leader who guarded the blood fruit was a Grandmaster Troll with a legendary bloodline. But he had to say it. The 6 of them looked at the hundreds of players in front of them with a strange look in their eyes. Burned Cinder and the others were thinking that if they revealed their identities, their chances of obtaining the blood fruit would increase significantly. Burned Cinder squinted his eyes and said coldly, "Why don't we forget about it? The blood fruit is really delicious. It's better to stay alive." The others were speechless. Besides Violent Dragon, who was using boxing gloves, everyone else had weapons that were bigger, longer, and thicker than Burned Cinders. When William and his companions rushed over, they saw a huge cave filled with trolls holding maces. What possessiveness! It's a sense of conquest. Violent Dragon, go and reveal your identity in front of the Chosen Ones and issue a mission in my name. Get them to mess up the situation. William did not know what Adolf was thinking. Otherwise, he would have recommended hot lava to Adolf. Understood. Everyone nodded. Adolf's 25 men did not stop the players. Adolf had just been called out. Now that he saw the Chosen Ones of the City of Dawn, he was a little afraid. But he had come to the Emerald Grand Duchy. How could he hide when he saw the mercenaries of the City of Dawn? How would others look at him? I wonder where Prince William went. These things can only increase our attributes, but they can increase the potential of the NPCs. This question took root in the minds of many NPCs. In less than half an hour. But even if they killed many trolls, even if the Chosen Ones did not appear today, they would appear another day. What? I can't handle a Grandmaster-level troll. As soon as Wales finished speaking, he saw a group of people staring at him. His mouth twitched and he could only sigh. I can handle it. He's just a Grandmaster-level troll. I'm the best battle shield in the southeast region. Thus, after they dispersed, only a group of trolls were left howling in the same place. Where did they come from? Damn it, I even saw a lot of muscular tyrants carrying out evil mating rituals inside. My eyes were practically blinded. This race that is full of freedom is too perverted. It was true. Let's go. Who knew there would be so many trolls in there? He did not want to see the Lord of the City of Dawn. Among them was Meichuan Naiku, who was a lifestyle player. He wielded his broadsword and dodged the attacks of the trolls. From time to time, he would counterattack, but he could not deal any damage to the trolls. Many NPCs who did not know the exact location of the trolls were lured over by the provocation of the players. They were a group of lifestyle players and adventurers who were not afraid of losing experience points. Meichuan Naiku saw more and more of his comrades dying. He immediately shouted, "Brothers, let's retreat. Don't let the NPCs reap the benefit. When they come, we'll reap the benefit." Because they already knew the Chosen Ones very well. The weakest were intermediate trolls, and there were more than 20 advanced trolls. In conclusion, they would go to places that were interesting and relaxing. Hundreds of intermediate professionals walked out in a hubbub, like farmers herding sheep, happily running towards the prairie. The others were speechless. You've reaped all the benefits, but you're the Lord. When he saw the muscular and steel-like trolls, he could not help but feel a sense of possessiveness. Many mages who believed in the truth would not completely believe in the so-called heavenly will. More importantly, these heaven's chosen ones were extremely vengeful. If he really killed them many times when they grew up, it was very likely that they would suffer endless revenge. More and more professionals gathered in the cave. But what was interesting was that the trolls could drop equipment after they died. Ahem, it's not a sense of conquest. William gradually locked his gaze on the legendary trolls. No one knew what he was thinking. There were hundreds of trolls. The legendary troll, who was guarding the cave entrance, shivered. He felt that there were unruly people who wanted to harm him. Otherwise, it would have been a mess. Therefore, if they wanted to kill the chosen ones, they had to conceal their faces. They could not let the chosen ones discover their identities. For a moment, none of the hidden NPCs dared to stop them. Bah, coward! Diablo spat in disdain. Time passed. That was right. Hee, I'd like to know who's so powerful. My sword is thirsting for blood. Burned Cinder caressed his dragon-slayer saber and laughed coldly. William narrowed his eyes and said, "Be careful. We don't know who released the news about the blood fruit. Be careful. Don't let the dark forces take it all." Chapter 260. Meichuan and the rest of them gathered together and started to discuss among themselves. I knew it. Wherever there are benefits, Prince William will be there. TSK. We've seen at least 6 legendary big shots and a group of epic-ranked creatures along the way. I really feel that legendary creatures are nothing. Epic-ranked creatures are everywhere. I wonder if His Highness can snatch the blood fruit. Now is the time to prove who is the real man. Let's see if Prince William can stand up. You might not believe it, but I feel that Prince William is plotting something. It's impossible for him to stand up. +1+1. The hundreds of players from the City of Dawn were very familiar with William. Even if Prince William did not release a fart, they would not be able to smell it. But under such circumstances, William had asked them to cause trouble. This meant that he was definitely playing dirty. Unknowingly, when the players saw that William wanted to obtain the blood fruit, they gave up on snatching it. Instead, they chose to help William. This showed the problem of their sense of belonging. The players had always been with the City of Dawn faction. They did not think of killing William to obtain his equipment. After all, the players had emotions. They were also humans. The players could disregard everything for their own benefit. But after staying in the City of Dawn for a long time, they would feel that it was their home. They would want to protect William. Perhaps one day that day would come. When William no longer had the strength to fight, the players would pick up their weapons and charge into the endless enemies just to protect their lord. It was simple. They had to play the emotional card. This was the charm of a lord. Fortunately, William did not lack the charm. He was very handsome. Whales and burned fire followed behind William. They watched as he used his glowing left hand to dig. His speed was as fast as a normal person's walking speed. Both of them were puzzled. They wanted to ask, "Boss, why are you so skilled? Just how many holes did you dig to reach the peak of the king rank?" But William did not have the time to answer them. He had trained by digging tens of thousands of meters. He used his soul sense to infiltrate the soil to avoid being discovered. At the same time, he focused on digging the tunnel. With the 3-pronged method of digging, it didn't take long for them to reach the bottom of the cave. Above them were hundreds of trolls. The 2 of them were 10 meters apart, but even the troll chief, who was at the Grandmaster stage, could not detect them. However, William did not move. It was better to be cautious. He even used the chain of consciousness to link everyone together. At this moment, the 6 of them could not help but feel a headache coming on. The next moment, the scene in front of them suddenly split into 6 parts. The largest portion in the middle belonged to the perspective he was looking at. As for the other 5 small images, they belonged to other people. F***ck, what kind of ability is this? T-Rex could not help but ask through the mental link. That's amazing. Fortunately, I sensed a familiar mental power, or else I would have fought back. Diablo blinked. The 5 extra images weren't too bad. He didn't feel dizzy. That was because everyone's mental strength was not weak. 5 extra images were not a big problem at all. If the players wanted to learn this ability, they would have to practice it well. Burned Cinder nodded thoughtfully. That's a good ability. I heard that T-Rex is getting married. On the day of their wedding, Lord, you can link his consciousness. T-Rex shouted, F***CK. This is called the chain of consciousness. It can share other people's vision. In a small-scale battle, it is considered a super powerful ability. Also, it can carry out mental communication. That means that other people will know what you are thinking. William explained. Awesome, are you really a soul mage? Wales suddenly asked. Everyone knew that Prince William was a ranger. But they had just joined the City of Dawn, so they did not know what his other occupation was. After all, on many battlefields, William Saint's soul magic was not very effective. Normal soul mages would not be able to use it. William casually admitted, and did not explain further. His Saint's soul magic was full of tricks. How could it be similar to the skills of normal soul mages? It was similar to the sacrifice, that absorbed the souls of others to replenish their blood. It was similar to the soul control, that could not be learned now. There were also various soul skills. These were not the common skills of advanced soul mages. As time continued to pass, Li Tianlan's expression changed. The situation outside was getting more and more chaotic. Hundreds of professionals kept trying to lure out the trolls hiding in the cave. The blood fruit in the cave was about to ripen. However, everyone's method of attracting monsters was nothing more than arrows or skills and spells that weren't too powerful. After all, until the very last second, no one would think that they couldn't get what they wanted, nor would they let others not get what they wanted. Come out, you little trolls. Troll leader, you've been cuckolded. If you don't believe me, go back to your lair. It's true. Your followers are lying on your wife. Tisk tsk. You probably haven't unlocked all the positions. Needless to say, when the hunters, who were familiar with the trolls, scolded the trolls, the troll leader in the cave was instantly enraged. He lifted his mace and was about to rush out. He wanted to smash the group of people who were spouting nonsense into meat paste and feed them to his newborn son. But he glanced at the blood fruit that was about to ripen. He decided to bear with it. But how could he not know if he had been cuckolded? He did not even know if his son was his, hence, the legendary troll named Crazy Groom immediately called out a dozen names and said, "Stop those damned brats. If you can't, I'll crush your heads with a single slap." The dozen or so unlucky trolls looked at each other. They knew that they could not be the only ones going out to kill themselves. Hence, they glanced at the gloating fellows and said that they did not have enough manpower. They wanted to bring some people out to block the entrance. Crazy Groom was dumbfounded. He knew that there were a total of 13 trolls who could have cuckolded him. But there were 33 of them at once. Among them were his biological brothers, nephews, sons, nephews, his subordinates, and so on. When the troll leader saw this, he was speechless except for the word F***ck in his heart. However, his heart was filled with anger. He waved his hand angrily and asked the bastards to leave. Many hunters who were familiar with the operation of the trolls were stunned when they saw the 33 trolls. They cursed in their hearts, so many. Some of the professionals who did not know the truth were completely dumbfounded. I shot arrows and threw magic spells. I can't even withstand a few verbal taunts? But then again, many of the professionals felt sorry for the troll leader. However, some of the professionals who had wives at home felt a little guilty. After all, they were fighting for their lives outside and often did not return home for months. What was their wives doing now? Damn it. Many of the professionals felt like their heads were going to explode. Hence, they comforted themselves. If I want to live a good life, I have to be cuckolded. Chapter 261. Time was running out. The blood fruit was about to ripen. Hundreds of impatient professionals joined hands to attack the trolls with thick skin and maces. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One of the elite trolls with epic bloodline seemed to be suffering from dwarfism. He was less than 2 meters tall and looked very short. The weapons in his hands were not thick and long maces. Instead, they were 2 epic swords. He stared at one of the elite professionals and slashed at him. After 3 slashes, the combat energy shield was broken. After another 3 slashes, the elite's equipment was broken. Afterwards, he ignored the attacks from the 2 people on his left and right, enduring the damage he received, and slashed out with the remaining 5 slashes. Just like that, he instantly killed a high-level warrior. What the F***ck? Why is this dwarf so fierce? Many professionals were shocked. After all, in their eyes, trolls were supposed to be stupid and fierce, but they were a little slow. Now, there was a mutant? But you don't say. There were many mutants among the trolls. Other than the hunters who specialized in dealing with them, not many professionals knew about the trolls. However, even if the trolls could fight against many of them, they were still not strong enough to deal with so many professionals. If not for the fact that there were many professionals who planned to ambush the trolls, the 33 trolls in front of them would have been killed. At the same time, some of the more observant professionals noticed that there was an air vent at the top of the cave that led directly into the cave. One of the professionals from the mercenary group could not wait any longer. He jumped down from the air vent and started fighting with the trolls in the cave. Meichuan Naiku and a few hundred other players rushed over and retreated back to where they came from. The situation was more chaotic than they had imagined. While the professionals were fighting the trolls, they secretly attacked their teammates who had just formed an alliance. This angered many people, and a chaotic battle broke out. There are so many elite professionals. We can't do anything. Sneak attack? Forget it, forget it. Isn't this just asking for trouble? Yumekawa frowned and waved his hand. We can't just give up without getting anything. We can loot the equipment. So many people have died. Whether it's the trolls or the professionals, they have dropped a lot of equipment and materials. Let's gather together and loot the corpses instead of fighting. Hence, this group of bold and fearless players rushed out in a group. Many NPCs were stunned when they saw the Chosen Ones appear again. However, the players did not take the initiative to attack any forces. A group of shield-bearers stood at the edge and formed a tortoise formation. They were like a group of hamsters on the battlefield. Hundreds of people instantly surrounded some corpses, and a few seconds later, a naked corpse appeared in front of everyone. They looted corpses and looted other people's trophies over and over again. It made other people gnash their teeth in anger, but they were powerless against them. After all, the Heaven's Chosen Ones were a group of undead clan. Whoever touched them would dare to risk their lives against them, and they would not be able to do so. Moreover, not everyone was a legendary boss. Many high-leveled players with normal bloodlines were no match for hundreds of intermediate players. When they surrounded the troll's corpse, it was even more outrageous. In less than 2 to 3 minutes, all that was left of the troll was a pile of rotten meat. His skin, bones, and tendons were all looted. All that was left was a pile of smelly intestines that even dogs would not eat. We're rich, we're rich. This kind of chaotic battle is a good opportunity to get rich. That's right. In just a short while, we've looted more than 10 pieces of advanced equipment and more than 10 pieces of intermediate equipment. We didn't even suffer any losses. We've definitely made a killing. However, as time passed, this group of players became more and more outrageous. When they saw someone about to die, they walked over and waited for him to be killed. Then, they looted the corpse. However, this behavior angered some of the stronger bosses. They immediately used their ultimate skills to break up the formation of the players and instantly killed a large number of them. However, after Meichuan shouted, "Run!" all the players once again scattered and ran away. However, when the bosses went to join the battle again, they gathered together again and looted the corpse. It was obvious. The players had a deep understanding of their ancestors' battle tactic. If the enemy chased them, they would run. If the enemy retreated, they would harass them. Anyway, the equipment on the battlefield was extremely precious. Even if they died a few times, they were willing to do so. The corners of William's mouth twitched when he saw this scene from the perspective of others. Fortunately, everyone was after the blood fruit. If not, the players would have been beaten up long ago. He wanted to tell the players not to upload this to the forum. Otherwise, many players would have vomited blood. However, it was too late. He did not see that there was a live streamer among the hundreds of players. The forum was filled with jealousy and jealousy. Some people even wanted to try it on other battlefields. The chaotic battle continued. There were already quite a few professions rushing in from the huge hole. However, as the first troll leader to discover the blood fruit, his strength was not to be underestimated. This Grand Master Troll charged forward with his 2.5-meter-long mace and hit the troll with it. Not only did the shields of the high-level shield bearers in front of them shatter, but they were also smashed into the wall like cannonballs. They spat out blood and looked like they were going to die. Gosh, where are the shield bearers? Why are they embedded into the wall? The mercenaries thought that they would be the victors after entering the hole. But they realized that the troll leader was too powerful. Crazy Groom also showed his craziness. He was more than 6 meters tall and weighed thousands of kilograms. He waved his mace and attacked with his battle energy. After he rushed into the crowd, he smashed the troll leaders. He did not have any powerful moves. He had unimaginable brute force. The mercenary team did not have any powerful shield bearers to defend them. Many warriors and rangers could not withstand a single attack from the Grandmaster Troll. Every time Groom swung his mace, there would be a piercing sound. He would smash the enemies into pieces or send them flying. The leader of the mercenary team was an epic warrior. He wanted to use his swords to block the attacks, but under the indescribable force, the epic bloodline advanced warrior turned from a 2-meter-tall man to a 20-centimeter pile of flesh. His flesh and equipment fused together and could not be separated. It was an instant kill. Wales saw this from another angle. He could not help but grip his shield and longsword tightly. He cursed in his heart. This was a trap. How could he withstand it? In a short 5 minutes, dozens of professionals who entered the cave from above died on the spot. Some of the shield bearers who were embedded in the wall died even more tragically. The troll leader dug them out from the wall and tore off one of their thighs. Then he started munching on it. Burned Cinder felt a little weak. There were still many trolls in the cave. William asked Wales to block the troll leader, but he still had to block the other trolls. He felt that he was lacking something in this battle. But the blood fruit was about to ripen. The group battle became more intense. Some legendary bosses finally appeared. Chapter 262. The legendary boss, who was hiding in the dark, was like a tiger charging into a pack of wolves. He broke through the chaotic crowd and rushed towards the cave entrance. The few trolls at the cave entrance did not last for more than 3 seconds under the attacks of several legendary NPCs. They died on the spot. It was obvious. Some legendary NPCs had joined forces. However, William's eyes were very sharp. Adolf, the husky, was actually mixed in with the wolf pack. He hurriedly said, "Alec, hide. Everyone else, go into the cave and bury yourselves at the entrance. I think there's a conspiracy." Violent Dragon and his companions entered the tunnel. With the sound of a horn blowing, the tremors on the ground intensified. Countless ear-piercing roars came from all directions. Many professionals who were at the periphery shouted in fear, "Dark creatures, there are so many dark creatures. We've been tricked." Some mercenaries and hunters realized that something was amiss. They did not care about the blood fruit. They wanted to escape before the dark creatures surrounded them. Before they could escape, a group of dark knights appeared at the periphery. They were riding skeletal horses that were burning with black flames. Damn, it's the hellish skeletal horses. It's going to be difficult to escape. Hellish skeletal horses? This was a group of monsters that did not need to obey gravity. They could even step on the ceiling as though it was flat ground. Wherever the horses' hooves passed, there would be black flames that were extremely corrosive. The Dark Knights who were riding the hellish skeletal horses were the true Dark Knight. Besides the heavens, they were the trump card of the dark forces. Many professionals who wanted to escape were blocked by the Dark Knights who were running on the trees. It was an awkward scene. They rode on the trees. It was like a pig climbing a tree. Their actions were too flashy. Even some high-grade professionals who flew high up in the sky encountered extremely troublesome flying monsters. It was obvious. This group of dark creatures that had suddenly appeared wanted to surround and annihilate all of them. Therefore, more professionals chose to retreat and warned the group of suicidal B***stards to stop fighting. The most important thing now was to deal with the dark creatures. But many of them were in a frenzy. How could they care about the unknown number of dark creatures? In particular, those legendary NPCs were even more selfish. They belonged to different factions and were all genius professionals of their factions. Now, their hearts were as clear as a mirror. They thought to themselves, "You bunch of weaklings can't escape, but can't I?" As long as he seized the opportunity to snatch the bloodline fruit, it wouldn't be a problem for him to carve out a path for himself. After all, he was a legend. Many legendary NPCs had the strength and experience to fight beyond their level. This experience gave them unparalleled confidence. Otherwise, how could they ignore the Grandmaster-level trolls and rush in? But what everyone didn't expect was, Adolf, who was also competing for the bloodline fruit, suddenly changed his mind. He suddenly waved a sword light that was burning with black flames and immediately killed a so-called genius. With a wave of his hand, more than 20 bounty hunters rushed out and chased after the legendary NPCs, beating them up. The trolls in the cave seemed to be the underlings of the dark creatures. With Crazy Groom's roar, most of the trolls rushed out and attacked the human professionals. "Damn it! Are you bunch of bounty hunters tired of living? How dare you become the dogs of the dark creatures? Don't let us escape. Otherwise, you won't have a place to hide in the entire continent." The genius warrior whose chrysanthemum was severely injured said resentfully. His chrysanthemum, which had never been touched by anyone before, didn't feel tight anymore. He felt like he was going to die at any moment. The players naturally knew that they had been tricked. Logically speaking, the dark creatures were tricking the NPCs, and it had nothing to do with the players. However, they came to join in the fun because they knew about the bloodline fruit. They might all die here today. Gosh, the battle is too intense. We can't escape at all. Are we going to revive at the revival point after we die? That would be a great loss. Hold on. Let the NPCs hold them off. Let's see if we can find His Highness. If we can find him, follow him closely. If not, we're doomed. The players knew that His Highness must have abandoned them in this situation. They had no choice. They could revive. They could only hope that they would receive more rewards after reviving in the city. At least, they would be able to compensate for the equipment that they had lost. William was still observing through Alec's perspective. He could not help but inhale a mouthful of cold air. The Dark City was going all out. They were going to annihilate this group of genius professionals. They were going to start a war. He even recognized a legendary NPC. The legendary NPC, whose chrysanthemum was pierced by Adolf, was the son of a marquis from the Red Fire Kingdom. He was extremely powerful. Logically speaking, he did not die in William's previous life. But now it was highly likely that he would die here. This meant that the butterfly effect had begun. Adolf, who had been scared away by William, was the windstorm caused by the butterfly effect. William did not know what the windstorm would be like. The bloodline fruit is about to ripen in 2 to 3 minutes. However, the troll leader above us hasn't left yet. If I dig now, I'll definitely attract his attention. Whales, get ready. William quickly started to dig upwards. Even though the footsteps of thousands of dark creatures were very loud, The ground beneath the troll leader's feet was continuously collapsing. He cautiously took a few steps back and frowned. He could not help but mutter, "What's that? Are they the Dark World's earthhogs? So disgusting. F***ck you're digging." William could not hold it in any longer. He transformed into a blue shadow and broke out of the ground. He aimed his sword at the troll leader's head. Swish! A long and narrow thunder sword energy flew towards the troll leader's head. Bang! The cautious troll leader raised his mace to block the attack. The scattered lightning did not cause any damage to the troll leader. Wales raised his shield and sword and charged forward. A huge force smashed into Crazy Groom's stomach, causing him to take 3 to 5 steps back. A small wound appeared on his stomach. "Shorties, you're courting death." Groom discovered the wound on his stomach. Even though there was not much blood flowing out, he was furious. He kept chanting incantations that others could not understand. In just a few seconds, the surface of the troll leader's body had turned as black as ink. He hit his chest with his mace, but not only did he not suffer any damage, there was a clear sound of metal striking metal. Burned Cinder and Diablo stopped the other trolls. Wales and Violent Dragon looked at each other. If the troll in front of them could call himself a meat shield, what would they be? A meatball? It was a pity that William could not be bothered with other things. He gazed at the blood fruits that were about to ripen. The troll leader roared and beat up Wales and Violent Dragon. He swished the blood fruits 9 times. He plucked all the blood fruit. Then he used his left hand of the Thunder God to dig out the entire plant. At this moment, he glanced at the bruised and swollen faces of the trolls. "Let's go. Let's go. Don't dawdle." After William finished speaking, he leaped into the tunnel without looking back. The troll leader could not take it anymore. The blood fruits were used as bait by the Lord of the Dark Castle. Now that the entire plant had been snatched away, even if he could return alive, he would be severely punished. Therefore, he broke through the defensive formation of Wales and Violent Dragon and leaped into the tunnel. But, at this moment, Wales and his companions, who seemed to be in a bloody battle, suddenly used all sorts of powerful attacks. They forcefully destroyed the entire cave. Meanwhile, before the cave collapsed, they dashed into the tunnel. As a result, Crazy Groom raised his head and looked at the tunnel entrance that had been blocked. Then, he looked at the many burly men who were surrounding him and gulped. He could not help but swing his mace to stop the burly men from advancing. He roared crazily, but the burly men did not care. They continued to approach him with smiles on their faces. Even if he screamed until his throat was sore, no one would come to save him. What could a Grandmaster Troll do? 4 legendary and 1 epic troll would beat him up. Chapter 263. Mad Groom couldn't unleash much of his strength in this terrain that was clearly a trap for him. Under the siege of the 5 burly men, he quickly lay on the ground, barely breathing, allowing the enemies to ravage his body. He teared up as he waited for his enemies to execute him. But the leader in front of him was distracted. D*MN, he's too much. Groom cursed in his heart. But he was happy to be able to live for a while longer. William ignored him. He had discovered something interesting from Alec's perspective. The dark creatures had purposely released some professionals from the Emerald Grand Duchy. Even the players had escaped with them. But the professionals from Lanyu Grand Duchy and other forces had been obstructed by the dark creatures. They were tortured to death. That's right. It's a conspiracy of the Dark City. William recalled the information about the Crimson Blood. The overlord of Darkness City was also a vampire named Osman Lothar. He was an intermediate professional from Emerald Grand Duchy. He was not weak, but he was not strong either. On his wedding night, a vampire descended from the sky and wanted to take away his beautiful wife's virginity. When Osman Lothar saw the vampire, his face was filled with disbelief, because the vampire in front of him was the kindest aristocrat in their city. He was indignant and decided to resist. It was a pity that he was defeated, and because of his resistance, that kind noble lord not only sucked his wife dry in front of him, but also turned her into a dried corpse. As for Osmond Lothar, he lived on like a zombie. The next day, someone found him tied up. When Osmond regained his freedom, he immediately ran to the streets and cursed the noble. He told everyone that the noble was a vampire and that he wanted everyone to raise their weapons and resist, but no one would believe the nonsense of a crazy person. The commoners looked at him with pity. The soldiers beat him up and threw him back to his home. But Osmond Lothar did not give up. In the end, the soldiers could only beat him until he was half dead. They threw him out of the city and left him to fend for himself. After that, nobody knew how Osmond became the vampire that he hated the most. On the other hand, he was obsessed with killing vampires and humans who didn't believe in him. And because he devoured the blood essence of the vampires, he continued to grow stronger. His power continued to expand. However, it was absolutely forbidden for the blood race to devour each other. Not only would this attract the blood race's attention, but it would also cause their numbers to decrease. The blood tribe of the Emerald Grand Duchy had tried to kill him many times. However, not only did he escape every time, but he also became stronger. Until Osmond Lothar built the Dark City in the depths of the Nightmare Forest. Because of the problem of his own power, he temporarily stopped hunting down the vampires. Even said, it had been a long, long time since he had taken any action. Even though the three major powers knew that there was a Dark City in Nightmare Forest, they didn't know who the real City Lord was. However, Osmond Lothar was the one who started the main quest of Crimson Blood. The blood essence of the Blood Dragon was also intentionally spread by him. He wanted to kill as many vampires as possible in this chaotic battle. He wanted to become the king of vampires. He wanted to enslave all the blood race and kill them one by one. In this battle, he had purposely released some talented professionals from the Emerald Grand Duchy. It was an overt plot. The other powers had no choice but to believe that the Emerald Grand Duchy had joined forces with the Dark Forces or the Dark Forest. They wanted to destroy the talented professionals from their own powers. Of course, this was only the beginning of the chaos. As more and more conspiracies appeared, the situation became more and more complicated. The three major blood race powers would start a chaotic battle. It was at this moment that the Dark City truly appeared. William scratched his head. He didn't think too much about it. It was just a small matter. He just wanted to take advantage of Osmond Lothar while he was stirring up trouble. However, he didn't underestimate Osmond Lothar. Osmond Lothar was the one who obtained all the map. Not only did he destroy the Emerald Grand Duchy, Lanyu Grand Duchy, and the East Sea Metropolis, but he also became the king of vampires. However, when too much power gathered on him, when he could easily kill vampires in an instant, he gradually forgot his original intention and became a super demon king. Or rather, Osmond Lothar, who had been blinded by hatred, had now become a demon. Anyway, there aren't any good people in version 3.0 except for me. William licked his lips and removed the soul control on Bloody Crusher. Then, he cast a soul control on Crazy Groom. Hiss! Groom was extremely satisfied with the soul control. When his soul was captured, Groom felt as though his body had been emptied. When his soul returned to his body, he felt extremely satisfied. But it was painful. Groom's screams rose and fell. William's soul control did not stop. He did not stop at all. As for Burned Cinder and the rest, they were also dumbfounded and trembling. It had to be said. They had finally witnessed what a soul mage was like. It was so evil. As for William removing the soul control on Bloody Crusher, it wasn't a big deal. Anyway, Bloody Crusher was temporarily placed on Stormy Island, and they couldn't escape. Furthermore, Bloody Crusher had traumatized William. Even if William's soul control was temporarily removed, he wouldn't have the intention to rebel. By the time Bloody Crusher had the intention to rebel, William would have brought Crazy Groom back. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 80 times. Wales counted as he looked at the troll, who was rolling his eyes and begging for mercy. He felt a sense of pity for him. However, the troll's recovery speed was very fast. Burned Cinder held his long and thin Dragonslayer sword and stabbed the troll from time to time. Time passed. Half a day passed. The dark creatures had killed the professionals above them, but William still couldn't control the troll. But through Alec's hidden vision, he saw that someone had come to investigate the collapsed cave. William had no choice but to change his strategy. He dug a hole and retreated to the periphery. At the same time, he cast soul control on the troll that was crawling forward. Wales was holding the troll's neck with a rope, while someone was attacking from behind with a weapon. It was a conclusion. Inhumane. Chapter 264. William and his companions were lucky enough to escape from the encirclement through the underground tunnel. However, they did not dare to appear on the surface as many dark creatures were still searching for them. Mad Groom had finally turned to the light after 9 years of compulsory education by William. He had become a general of the City of Dawn. Although Groom was a Grandmaster legendary troll, his soul was constantly in and out of his body. After experiencing 810 hardships, he finally obtained the true scripture and returned to the light. Through Alec's point of view, William discovered something interesting. Alec had saved the professional whose butthole had been destroyed. He was the son of the Marquis of the Red Fire Kingdom, Brian Redflame. The Red Fire Kingdom was located in the north of the Nightmare Forest. Brian's family had the royal bloodline and was the most trusted family of the Red Fire King. They were extremely powerful, and it was not a problem to treat Brian as a prince. Brian followed Alec into the tunnel. He stared blankly at the troll, who was lying in the tunnel in an extremely humiliating position. The troll's eyes were glazed over, and saliva was dripping from the corner of his mouth. He could not imagine what kind of torture he was going through. Brian looked at the 5 black-robed men in front of him and gulped. He silently leaned his bleeding buttocks against the wall. The troll's buttocks were loose now, so they should not be interested, but he started to ponder. When the cave collapsed, the troll leader had not come out yet. There seemed to be a huge battle inside. Now that the troll leader was here, did it mean that the blood fruits had been taken by them? William looked at Brian's fearful expression and smiled as he approached him. "Don't be afraid, we're good people." "Ahem, I believe that all of you are good people. You've saved my life and I'll remember it. As for the blood fruits, I don't know anything. Moreover, the most important thing now is not the blood fruit. The Emerald Grand Duchy has colluded with the dark forces to secretly murder the genius professionals of the nearby nations." Brian did not ask for their identities. Instead, he changed the topic and implicated the Emerald Grand Duchy. After all, his identity was useless at this moment. He knew what was going on. Oh, the professionals of the Emerald Grand Duchy have all run away? Yes, someone deliberately let them live. But the appearance of so many high-level dark creatures is definitely not something that a single demon den can gather. Where are you from? What's your name? Brian hesitated for a moment before saying in a deep voice, "Red Fire Kingdom, son of Marquis Redflame, Brian Redflame." Originally, he wanted to see if the 6 people in front of him had any shocked expressions. In the end, other than William, who nodded, the other 5 were dumbfounded. That was because the other 5 didn't know how strong a Marquis of the Kingdom was. But the most unexpected thing was William took off his hood and revealed his face. He introduced himself. "Lord of the City of Dawn, William Blackleaf." City of Dawn? Could it be the City of Dawn, the only city in the legendary continent that had defeated the Darkness Invasion? Brian asked in surprise. "That's right." William smiled and nodded. "Mu Kuo, I like your shocked expression. It's an honor to meet you. I didn't expect Lord William to be so young and capable. Even in such a dangerous situation, you can still take a stroll in the park and steal." Brian glanced at the troll who was being led away and touched his injured buttocks. He smiled and said, I heard that the City of Dawn has accepted many employment missions recently. I wonder if you can send me back to the Red Fire Kingdom for 4,000 magical stones? Of course, that's not a problem. The City of Dawn represents light and justice. It's not a problem to escort you back. But 4,000 magical stones doesn't suit your status. 8,000. Deal. I'm just saying that 4,000 magical stones doesn't suit your status. I'm not asking for a higher price. William shrugged. He revealed his identity because he knew Brian very well. Also, he wanted to get in touch with the Red Fire Kingdom. He wanted to see if he could accept any missions, because the Red Fire Kingdom had sent a lot of talented professionals, but now that they had all died here, they had to demand an explanation. But the Emerald Grand Duchy was not a vassal of the Red Fire Kingdom, so he could not exert too much pressure on them. William could rely on his handsome looks to receive some important missions. The most important thing was, the strength of the Red Fire Kingdom was extraordinary. They were the strongest human kingdom besides the three empires. If William could build a good relationship with them in the early stages of the game, it would be very beneficial for the future development of the City of Dawn. From then on, the City of Dawn would not have to worry about the mercenary missions. The most important thing was that the Red Fire Kingdom was really warlike and rich. Meanwhile, the Lord of the Dark Night City was furious. Osmond stood up abruptly and smashed the innocent table with his palm. What are you saying? He roared. Not only did we not kill Brian, the troll leader is missing, and the bloodline fruit is also lost? Yes, that seems to be the case, Lord. A dark knight said awkwardly. Dark creatures were not without intelligence. The advanced Dark Knight in front of him had intelligence that was comparable to ordinary humans. It was a pity that they were not very familiar with digging tunnels. In addition, the cave had collapsed too severely, and the traces that William had dug out had been buried. Osmond glanced at the slightly intelligent Dark Knight. The corners of his mouth twitched. He knew that he did not need to waste his breath with these dark creatures. He waved his hand and let the Dark Knight leave. When there were no outsiders, he pushed open the secret door and entered a very noble and elegant room. Various strange runes and incantations were hung on the wall. On the table beside the room, there were colorful crystal balls and magical equipment. Not far away, an elderly man without legs was sitting on a chair. The old man held a transparent crystal ball in his arms. He did not care about Osmond. He frowned and kept caressing the crystal ball with his hands. Half an hour passed. The old fortune-teller with a broken leg coughed out a mouthful of blood. Osmond hurriedly ran over and patted the fortune-teller's back. He said softly, "You once asked me to predict the location of the fourth map of the blood essence of the blood dragon. At that time, there was a layer of fog in front of me. But when I did the divination again, I realized that the two lines had suddenly connected." "What do you mean?" Osmond Lothar was very respectful of the old fortune-teller. It was because of the fortune-teller that he had helped him so much that he could rise to where he was now. If not for the old fortune-teller's meticulous divination, he would have been able to come back to life at every step. How could he survive until now under the attacks of the three forces? Back then, how weak was he? Osmond's power and influence were getting stronger, but he had to stand at a higher position to understand the terrifying power of the old man in front of him. The old fortune-teller had never used other magic spells before. His divination abilities were beyond the reach of many people. The old fortune-teller pushed the wheelchair and held the crystal ball with both hands. It was as if he was caressing his wife's cheeks. He gently placed the crystal ball on the decorative shelf. Then, he smiled amiably and said, "I saw that the two lines of the blood fruit and the blood essence of the blood dragon map are connected. Just now I felt like I was in endless darkness, but I saw a ray of light. It was dazzling, bright, and full of hope. It's in the south." "Ray of light?" Gerda Nasses. "It seems like my prediction was right." Osmond narrowed his eyes. He knew that Gerda had this map, but he did not make a move. In the end, Gerda had entered the Dark World. At that time, Osmond was infuriated, but he returned to the surface. In the end, not only did he die in the attack on the City of Dawn, but he also lost the map. Osmond suspected that the Lord of the City of Dawn had taken the map, but the old fortune-teller could not confirm it. At that time, the map seemed to be shrouded in mist. No matter how hard the old fortune-teller tried, he could not find any useful information. Without concrete evidence, Osmond did not want to provoke the Lord of a powerful force. But now, Osmond narrowed his eyes. The Lord of the City of Dawn had spoiled his plans twice. It was time to let him know the true meaning of darkness. After finding out the location of William and his companions from the old fortune-teller, Osmond pushed open the door and left. The old fortune-teller lazily raised his eyebrows and said, "Who covered your body with mist? If I hadn't been paying attention to this ambush, I wouldn't have been able to capture you in such a short time." In the fortune-telling shop of the City of Dawn, many players were giving money to the shop in hopes of getting into the good books. It was a pity that Moses did not even look at the players. He only petted his cat. Until just now. He suddenly raised his eyebrows and smiled. He waved his hand and chased all the players out of the shop. He cupped the black cat's big round face and said, Black meow, tell me, who can decipher my divination skills?" Meow meow. The black cat was an outstanding meow alien. It would not yield. It only meowed a few times before struggling to escape from Moses' hands. It ran to the side and ignored the crazy fellow. Moses calmly looked towards the north. His gaze pierced through space and landed in front of a certain person. At this moment, the old fortune-teller, who was hiding in Osmond's secret room, was stunned. He looked at his surroundings, and his expression changed drastically. He had never expected that deciphering the mist of a fortune-teller would allow someone to break through his defenses and discover his existence. That gaze had not left his body. It was as if the person had seen through his previous life. The old fortune-teller was so depressed that he even felt like dying. He wanted to slap himself in the face, cursing himself for being so curious. His eyes were asking for too much. He could only pray that the person would not reveal his aura and location, but fortunately there was. That person had no intention of revealing his existence. A cold voice entered his ears, demanding a large amount of extremely precious magic materials. The old fortune-teller's legs had already been broken, but now a pair of elemental legs were formed. He hurriedly stood up and bowed respectfully. I will send someone to deliver it to the place you mentioned in 3 days." Subsequently, Messiah's gaze faded. The old fortune-teller sat down on the chair and took a deep breath of the beautiful air, freedom. How nice. Alive. How nice. There were so many gods in the world who had reincarnated, but how many of them had actually survived? How many of them had successfully escaped the pursuit of the saints? Even though he was the god of divination, didn't he still have his legs amputated and almost die? However, he was still a little curious. Who was that existence that had discovered him just now? Tui, if I don't change my curious hobby, I'll fall again. The old man shook his head and decided to focus on his cultivation for the time being, not caring about anything else. William was not just an NPC. He was also a player. When Osmond Lothar sent out the assassins, he had received the mission information. Mysterious bounty. Someone is out to kill you, please stop the bounty. Mission level A+. Mission information. Only by defeating the bounty again and again will the bounty hunter acknowledge your strength. Work hard, brother. Mission reward? Bounty? How can I kill me underground? William was a little curious, but since the bounty had been issued, he had to be careful. Hence, when the dark creatures gradually dispersed, William let Alec and Violent Dragon bring the troll to the base of the Dawn mercenary team and send him home. William led the others to escort the injured Brian home. At the same time, he tried to hook up with the Red Flame Kingdom to see if he could obtain some missions. William, Burned Cinder, Diablo, Wales, and Brian started to run towards the north at an extremely fast speed. Brian's anus had not healed for a long time, and it was corroded by the black poison. He was in excruciating pain, and he could not run. Burned Cinder and the others took turns to carry him. William could have used the life potion to completely remove the side effect. He could even revive Brian on the spot. But the life potion could not be revealed easily. More importantly, even though Brian was strong, everyone was a legendary. There was no need to spoil him. He was just a middleman that William used to contact the Red Flame Kingdom. Although there were many dark toxins, they were not fatal. As long as there was a perfect treatment plan, Brian's anus could become tighter. At least, he would not have to relieve himself. And now, Brian couldn't help but fart and poop. Every time he farted, his face would show an expression of pain that made him wish he was dead. One could imagine. Adolf's sword was definitely poisonous. This was not something that the Black Flame battle energy could achieve. As time passed, when William and his companions had run more than 10 kilometers, they could feel their pursuers approaching. Brian thought that the pursuers were coming to kill him. He immediately shouted, 12,000 magical stones. Bosses, don't leave me behind. William said righteously, protect him. I'll deal with the pursuers. Chapter 265. Brian's Scarlet Flame thought that the enemies were after him. During the siege, he discovered that the bounty hunters had the intention to kill him and his followers. In particular, the dark creatures were besieging him with all their might. If he hadn't been lucky enough to bump into Alec, who didn't want to expose himself and saved him, he probably wouldn't even be able to make it to his grave. When Brian saw the pursuers again, he was filled with anger. He wanted to know who wanted to kill him. If it was the Emerald Grand Duchy, he would teach them a lesson. It had to be said. The royal family of the Red Fire Kingdom had the surname Scarlet Flame. The Marquis Scarlet Flame family also had the royal blood of the kingdom flowing in their veins. This kingdom had been established for less than 800 years, and it had been built by two brothers. In the end, the elder brother became the king and changed his surname to Scarlet Flame. The younger brother became the prince and changed his surname to Scarlet Flame. But according to the aristocratic rules of the human empires, the prince had to be at least an epic-titled professional. If there were no epic-titled professionals in 2 generations, the nobility of the family would be demoted. The current Scarlet Flame family, regardless of whether it was the veteran experts or the young experts, had been killed in battle. The family leader was only an advanced professional, and his nobility had been demoted by 2 levels. Brian Scarlet Flame was not only the new hope of his family, but he was also one of the top genius professionals in the Red Fire Kingdom. It could be said that killing Brian was equivalent to killing a prince of the Red Fire Kingdom. William threw away his black robe and held his sword hilt with his right hand. He dashed towards the enemies. Diablo and Burned Cinder did the same. Wales was protecting Brian, who was severely injured and could not move. Kill them. Don't leave anyone alive. A voice rang out. 8 figures appeared from the surrounding trees. They charged towards William and his companions. Why are there so few of them? William was curious. But when he used his insight, his expression changed drastically. There were 2 legendary, 3 epic, and 3 grandmaster vampires. They were all advanced vampires. Blood Shadow assassins? The prince sucked in a breath of cold air. He had never imagined that he would actually encounter the Dark City's trump card assassination team. Leave this observant lad to me. You guys deal with the rest. One of the slender vampires licked his lips in disgust and immediately transformed into dozens of bats that charged towards William. William looked at the guy in front of him and could not help but grin. Blood Shadow King, Blood Devil? His Royal Highness was a little worried. The vampire's ability to control blood was purely instinctive. however, within the same rank, who had the best blood control ability. It was none other than the blood demon in front of him. His ability to control blood could be considered destructive, just like Diablo's ability to control metal. In a group battle, he could guarantee that his enemies would explode into puddles of blood. But William was not afraid of this. What was even more impressive was that he had spatial talent. He could constantly teleport in battle. He was a natural assassin. However, the blood demon's spatial innate talent was a killer move. It was the kind of ultimate move that couldn't leave any survivors once it was used, and it could prevent the enemy from being on guard. Therefore, the players did not know about this news in the early stages. When William saw the blood devil transform into bats and charge towards him, he activated the thunder shield and retreated. He continuously knocked down many trees, but he did not slow down. He wanted to distance himself from the blood explosion skill to prevent the blood explosion skill. He said in a deep voice, "Be careful. This group of vampires is very strong. Wales, bring Prince William away first." "Got it. Fortunately, I have brought enough magic scrolls." Burned Cinder raised his eyebrows. He gripped his Dragon Slayer saber tightly. When fiery battle energy surged out of the blade, the entire saber was like magma. There were even liquefied flames flowing on the blade. It was as if he had changed his weapon's skin. It was extremely cool. In front of Burned Cinder was another legendary vampire. That vampire instantly transformed into countless bats that charged towards Burned Cinder from all directions. Burned Cinder was not to be outdone. With an angry roar, a pillar of fire suddenly appeared under his feet and enveloped him. However, this was not the end. He glanced at the bats around him, and the flaming sword light instantly transformed into a sword screen. Wherever the sword light passed, the bats in front of him, left and right, turned into ashes. But it did not cause any significant damage. That was because the legendary vampire's true body had already dodged when the curtain of swords appeared. Blair was lying on Wales' back. He was puzzled. "I'm Prince William? Prince William? The son of a marquis? But I have royal blood flowing in my veins." "What he said is correct, buddy. Prince William? Prince William? Lord of the City of Dawn?" Blood Devil glanced at the severely injured Brian. He had a look of sudden realization. Then, he ordered 2 vampires to bypass Burned Cinder and the rest and charge towards Brian. As for the half-elf's pointy ears? Brian had never seen an elf before. How could he think so much? Gosh, boss, hurry up and run. They are really here to kill me." Brian saw that there were more vampires chasing after him. He cursed the group of vampires in his heart. He was sure that they were assassins sent by the Emerald Grand Duchy. Wales carried him on his back and ran towards the north. He used Brian as a shield to block the attacks from behind. Poof, poof, poof. 3 consecutive attacks hit Brian's buttocks once again, causing him to scream in pain. Brian felt that his buttocks had been completely destroyed. But no matter how much he urged, Wales replied calmly, "My legs are short, so I can run slowly." There was no other way. His attributes were all on his physical strength. Furthermore, he had a meat shield behind him. The attacks of the vampires were like tickles to him. There was no damage at all. Even though Wales was cunning, he condensed a layer of hard soil to block Brian's back. But the 2 of them ran even slower. The battle continued. When Diablo faced the vampires, he only needed to use magic scrolls. He did not have to worry about the blood control technique. He could easily beat up the vampires. In addition, William had given him a space ring. Hence, his metal storm was free. Because the space ring was filled with various metals and some rare metals, he could use them to his heart's content. Occasionally, he would have a small explosion. All the plants and animals within a radius of tens of meters were instantly turned into pieces. The most impressive thing was that the metals could be used multiple times. He could now fight 3 vampires alone, and he could even help Burned Cinder. Suddenly, everything was a mess. But William was in an awkward situation. He quickly used the magic scrolls to defend against the blood control technique. The blood devil in front of him was very powerful. He kept using the blood control technique to deplete the magic in the magic scrolls. I can't let this drag on. Even if I don't kill him, I have to injure him. Otherwise, I'll lose the magic scrolls. I'll die here. William had thick skin and good equipment, but he could not withstand the blood control technique. In addition, there were no monsters for him to sacrifice, so he could not recover much health points. It had to be said that this was a sad story. Hence, William did not avoid the battle. Instead, he activated the power of the Saint Spirit. All his attributes increased by 23%, and his speed increased tremendously. He charged at the blood devil and slashed out 9 streaks of sword energy. But the blood devil transformed into a few bats and easily dodged the sword energy. He transformed back into his human form and clenched his fist at William. Bang! William felt all the blood vessels in his body explode. Fresh blood gushed out of his throat. He forcefully swallowed it and crushed another scroll. Meanwhile, he suddenly dodged and hid behind a large tree. The blood devil was a little puzzled. What level were they at? Was there any use hiding behind a tree? But in the next moment, a silent ghost arrow flew towards his face. The blood devil was surprised. He tilted his head back, but his scalp was grazed by the arrow. Hence, William, who was enveloped by the Saint Spirit, traversed through space and appeared in front of the blood devil. When the blood devil saw this scene, he was shocked. But this method of attack made him involuntarily use his space endowment. He instantly teleported to a position 10 meters away. But William seemed to have sensed it. He immediately extended a huge soul hand and grabbed the blood devil 10 meters away. Fast speed, high attack, and powerful magic. But its weakness is its light body. William used the hand of soul to grab the blood devil and pulled him over. Both of them were face to face again. Swish! William once again slashed out a thunder sword energy that looked like a full moon. It was extremely dazzling. The blood devil transformed into a few bats and easily dodged it. But at the same time, a visible soul shock wave instantly expanded outwards with William at the center. A few small bats suffered a heavy blow in midair, and some of them dissipated. Only one bat transformed into a human and fell to the ground in a daze. William seized the opportunity. When he ran over, he activated the dawn assault and collided with the blood devil. But the blood devil, who seemed to be in a daze, instantly vanished. Instead, he appeared behind the frantically running William. He held a blood-red short sword and stabbed it at William's back. Crack! Sparks flashed. The short sword did not penetrate William's heart as it was blocked by the fire dragon's scale. It could only penetrate the armor and inner armor and stab William's back. But this attack from the back, it still caused more than 3,000 points of damage to William. The blood devil was slightly surprised. Just as he was about to stab again, the sword of Hex in William's hand shone brightly. Boom! Streaks of pitch-black destructive sword energy instantly charged in all directions. Everything within a radius of a few hundred meters was reduced to ashes. Even the blood devil behind William could not dodge. His body was pierced by the streaks of sword energy, and he was sent flying hundreds of meters away. But William did not give up. It would be best if he could kill the blood devil in advance. So he drew his bow and fired another arrow. Swish! Countless thunder arrows rained down on the spot where the blood devil had fallen. But not only did the fallen blood demon not dodge, but he also stood straight and gently waved his hand. Countless thunder arrows instantly disappeared. William's expression did not change. He took a deep breath and charged forward with his 2 weapons. The blood devil did not use his space endowment, which consumed a lot of his magic. He charged at William. The 2 of them could be considered to be evenly matched. But the blood devil knew that the moment William used up his magic scrolls, he would die. William sneered. Did the Blood Devil realize that his recovery speed had slowed down? Did he want to fight in close combat with him? Did he not know that he had the Bloodthirst sword? Let's see how much blood a vampire like him has. Chapter 266. He had no way of escaping. But after 10 minutes of intense battle. But, prompt. You have survived the first attack of the mysterious killing order. There were 4 of epic quality. William only hoped that the next attack would be slower so that he would have less of an adrenaline rush. He ate it in 2 or 3 bites. Wasn't it supposed to be sour and sweet? Why was it only sweet now? William was helpless. The attack power of this sword was 1,300–3,800. If it weren't for the fact that their Do-Chi was unleashed to extinguish the flames, a forest fire that angered the magical beasts would have been unavoidable. Large patches of trees fell to the ground. He had also killed a vampire. Under the impact of the fire, not even a strand of hair was left behind. Wait a minute. His recovery speed is faster than mine? Crack. They hurriedly ran back or used magic voice transmission to transmit the news. According to the players, there was no video recording. They would not believe it. Effect. All attributes plus 20, even if William was a legendary NPC. He would not be able to kill a blood devil of the same level. William's right heart was pierced. When the blood devils charged at him again, only a few believed that William had died. The battle had been intense, but William was nowhere to be seen. There were 9 of them. The scene returned to William and his companions. No. He clutched his chest and hovered in midair. He glanced at his dead and injured teammates and glared at William. He waved his hand and shouted with his eyes, "Retreat!" Because he had already used it. He had suffered tens of thousands of points of damage. Both of them brandished their weapons at the same time. All sorts of shocking headlines claimed that William had died in the Nightmare Forest during an adventure to obtain the blood fruit. He had died under the siege of countless dark creatures. But his luck was only 1, so it was difficult to trigger the 3,800 attack power limit. They vaguely sensed a conspiracy. When William saw them leave, he almost fell to the ground. But he managed to stabilize himself. He looked around and said in a deep voice, "Let's run. The Blood Devils are looking for reinforcements. The Nightmare Forest is their territory. They will definitely make use of the dark creatures. If we are surrounded by the dark creatures in the Devil's Den, we will be doomed." But did the Blood Demon really not notice that his saber was about to be cut in half? William used the Sword of Hex and the Blade of Thunder. The combination of the sword and the blade was a short one and a long one. One drank blood while the other drank thunder. He should have died many times by now, but he was still full of energy, and his recovery speed was not any slower than that of a blood breed like him. Not all the professionals in the Emerald Grand Duchy were fools. The next moment, William asked Wales to send Brian away. The Blood Demon's long saber was cut in half, and the black sword light left a bloody wound on his chest. It was a bloody battle. The moment the blood-colored longsword broke, the Blood Demon suddenly took a step forward and took the opportunity to stab William's neck with his short sword. He could only lead the 2 vampires in circles, causing Brian's butt to be hit hard. This legendary little brother was about to cry from the beating. Impossible. My recovery speed is getting slower. The Blood Demon was horrified to discover a problem. His recovery speed was getting slower and slower. However, it was just as he had said. For someone who could become an advanced magus, especially someone like the Blood Demon who danced on the tip of a blade, how could he not have a strong combat sense? An indescribable lightning teleported and pierced through the Blood Demon's chest, blasting the trees behind him into pieces. Not only was the Blood Demon resistant, but his recovery speed was also very strong. He was definitely not a normal close combat ranger. There was another problem with the black longsword. What about William? Woo woo woo. The Blood Demon howled in pain. It was a pity that his mouth had been smashed, and he could only make buzzing sounds from his trachea. Meanwhile, boom! Why did the dark creatures let them go? They ran for more than 20 kilometers without stopping before they gradually escaped from the pursuit of the dark creatures. He had sensed it long ago. William did not bother with Brian. He secretly looked at the mission information. The situation was not good. It's possible. It's been such a long time, but we're the only ones who managed to escape. The rest are trapped inside. An indescribable roar, or rather, an ultrasonic wave, entered William's head. Nightmare Forest. He slowly took out the blood fruit. He didn't even show his head. They were still 330 kilometers away from the Red Fire Kingdom. The other vampires flapped their wings and hurriedly retreated. But the blood demon was not convinced. He used his remaining 2 eyes to stare at William. His body kept expanding, and a pair of bat-like dragon wings extended from his back. But it was a pity that the blood demon used teleportation again to avoid the murderous William. The blood demon, who had just spread his wings, knelt on the ground. He looked like he was on the verge of death. But the blood demon was more ruthless. He only avoided the vital parts and extended his glowing left hand to punch the blood demon's head. After all, the Nightmare Forest was very long. It did not make sense that there were devil's dens everywhere. Function: increase bloodline potential NPC. Prompt: however, in the Nightmare Forest, the mastermind will continue to pursue you until all the pursuers are dead or you die. Big bosses. Brian looked at the 3 people in front of him. He wanted to ask if someone else could carry him, but he realized that William and the others' injuries seemed to be more serious than his, so he didn't have the nerve to say that. Wouldn't those genius professionals have died in vain? But William glanced at Burned Cinder and Diablo, who were envious of him. He decided to forget about it. Meituan noticed that everyone was feeling uneasy. He pursed his lips and said, "Don't worry. With Prince William's high-level skills, he won't die anytime soon. I guess they didn't come here. Don't spread rumors on the forum." William suddenly gave him the middle finger, but the situation was too tense. He could see that the pursuers were very strong. He hated himself for not having the strength to fight. He used his blood control skill again. Pom, 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 pom. Although Meituan wanted to control the situation, the players were just there to watch the fun. After a while, a few posts appeared on the forum of the City of Dawn. Burned Cinder held the lava dragon-slaying blade in his hand. It was very lethal. Wherever the blade flashed, flames bloomed in the sky. Effect: randomly increase one's endowment level. Some of the surrounding trees had already started burning. Crack. William's situation was horrible. He was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He looked like he was about to die. What about Wales, who was carrying Brian? The power of destruction could ignore the defense of most equipment. It could also destroy the durability of the equipment. There was a commotion on the forum. For example, sometimes the damage that William dealt to himself was very high, but sometimes it was very low. But William's Sword of Curses had a special effect. Of course, the Blood Devil's ordinary face had completely collapsed. His chin had been smashed away, and his nose had disappeared. He had become a monster with only 2 eyes. Every time he was hit by the sword, his recovery would become very slow. Initially, he did not feel anything. He could only deal great damage if he hit the critical spot. Quality: legendary. William dashed forward again. Lightning continued to fall from the sky, striking William's head. It was a fatal blow to him. A few of them dashed forward again. They discovered many dark creatures searching the forest. F***ck, His Highness wouldn't have died, right? He gradually sensed that something was wrong. Most of the damage was very low, but there would be powerful attacks from time to time. He felt a little uncomfortable. The blessings of the inner armor were useless. Otherwise, if he appeared later on, he would be surrounded. This doesn't make sense. I'm not your relative, let alone your brother. We look like the difference between heaven and earth. Why aren't you Dark Knights attacking us? What do you mean? The blood devil used a long and narrow crimson blade. The blade flashed very quickly. Every time it slashed through the air, it would leave a trail of blood in the air. It also had the negative effect of losing a lot of health points. An unknown battle was taking place. Crackle! The blood devil started to use his skills to exchange damage for damage. It was a bloody battle. Both of them fought fiercely. The blood devil was very enthusiastic, but he did not realize that his weapon was about to be destroyed. There was a huge bloody hole in the blood devil's chest. His heart had completely disappeared. Blood fruit hence. William narrowed his eyes and opened his mouth. The blood devil discovered a problem. Everything else was different. But Burned Cinder's fighting style was too wild. Even if the other forces believed that this was a trap and conspiracy set by the Dark faction. Meanwhile, Crack. Friendly reminder. Eat him or sell him to an NPC for a sky-high price. Should he try eating another one? William and the blood devil started fighting again. But they would not be satisfied if they did not take advantage of the Emerald Grand Duchy. However, Dark City's scheme was an overt one. As long as some news was deliberately spread, the Emerald Grand Duchy would be blamed for colluding with the dark creatures. At this moment. Effect. Health points plus 1,000. Friendly reminder. Escaping from the Nightmare Forest is the only way to survive. His health points dropped to the bottom. At the eastern border of the Nightmare Forest. This time it was a duel. William channeled half of his battle energy into the Sword of Hegni, and the light of dawn exploded. This was the first time the Blood Shadow Assassin team had encountered such a powerful enemy. It was also the first time they had suffered such severe injuries. Even though William had used magic scrolls, the blood vessels in his body continued to rupture. In addition, the mental attack had slowed down his thinking. There were 5 legendary quality vampires. The metal spear exploded into metal fragments, and the vampire was also blasted into minced meat with a horrified expression. Diablo seized the opportunity and attacked with his spear. A few metal spears pierced through the sky, and a vampire was nailed to a tree. William scratched his head. They had been running around randomly, and no one knew where they had gone. But he flew up into the sky and determined his direction. Then, he decided to continue heading north. Hence, the players had followed the professionals of the Emerald Grand Duchy in a daze. But now they were confused. Chapter 267. When William swallowed the blood fruit, a burst of energy suddenly erupted in his stomach. That extremely comfortable energy spread through his entire body, almost causing the prince to moan. Fortunately, William stopped and protected his pride at the crucial moment. However, the legendary bloodline fruit was still very effective. Prompt: you have swallowed the legendary blood fruit, all your attributes plus 20, your health points plus 1,000, your endowment, advanced hardened skin will be upgraded to body of steel, Wang Defa. William was in disbelief. He had never expected that the random upgrade of the endowment would be this. Moreover, it had directly upgraded his body of steel. Gosh, that's way too perverted. It was a comprehensive enhancement to his defense. Besides the fact that he could not defend against mental attacks and the blood control skill, he was a super meat shield. That's awesome. Even if my health points are low, I'm still a legendary boss. Moreover, my defense is so high. It's outrageous. William was dumbfounded. The body of steel was inferior to the diamond body, extraordinary body, and godly body. But to William, it was an unimaginably godly endowment. Endowment: body of steel, 1 point of physical strength equals 2 points of defense. Your defense will be increased by 200 points, and your health points will be increased by 2,000 points. With the addition of the bloodline potential, I have a total of 1174. 8 defense. This does not include the additional defense from my equipment. It's a total of 2,000 defense. William swallowed his saliva. With such a strong defense, under certain circumstances, he did not need to care about the normal attacks of some professionals. What about the players? TSK. Miss. Other than their ultimate skills, which would cause him to lose tens or hundreds of health points, the rest of the time, the damage would be 0. And this did not include the battle energy shield. But the crucial moment had arrived. He did not know how much the blood fruit could increase his bloodline potential. But it was obvious that he already had a legendary bloodline. There was no way for him to increase his bloodline potential. Prompt: Your bloodline potential has been upgraded. From 1% increase in 4-dimensional attributes to 1% increase in 4-dimensional attributes with each upgrade. The maximum increase in bloodline potential is level 100. It's not a small amount. It's really not a small amount. Even if it increases by 0.1%, when I reach level 100, it will become 110%. It's equivalent to an additional 10% increase in all attribute. William heaved a sigh of relief. He was amazed by the effects of the legendary blood fruit. He knew, if the legendary bloodline fruit was given to someone else, it would be even more effective. However, he was not only a lord, but also a player with only one life. This item was obtained by him, so there was no reason for him to give it to his subordinate. Even if they were his confidants, they had to be loyal and hard-working enough to be rewarded with these things. Of course, Burned Cinder and the others definitely had to pay. After all, they had contributed a lot in this battle. Hence, William took out 2 epic-quality blood fruits and threw them to the 2 people who were staring at him. "Thank you, sir. Thank you, your highness." Burned Cinder and Diablo laughed and wolfed down the blood fruits that they had just obtained. They didn't even spit out the cores. Thinking of this, William was stunned. He didn't seem to spit out the cores. They won't grow in my stomach, right? William stroked his chin and ignored the 2. Then he sent Brian away and gave Wales a blood fruit. He didn't give them the legendary blood fruit because for legendary NPCs, the blood fruit could only improve their bloodlines. The key was to upgrade their endowment. He had just tried it. It was better to eat the epic blood fruit. Perhaps it could increase their endowments by 5%. Then he would gamble on his luck to see if he could upgrade their endowments to become stronger. As for the other blood fruits, William gave them to his subordinates as rewards, such as Violent Dragon, Alec, Odom, Lautner, Eric, Captain Jack, and the others. If they did well, their bloodline potential might become legendary. If there were a few more legendary bloodlines, then the benefits would be maximized. Burned Cinder and the others couldn't tell which blood fruit was better. Anyway, it was good enough that they had something to eat. The 3 of them swallowed the blood fruit and covered their mouth. They were afraid that they would scream out loud. That was because the feeling of increasing one's innate talent had completely melted into one's bones. It was more than 10 times better than the so-called affairs between a man and a woman. Brian glanced at Wales and the others with a sneaky expression. He smacked his lips, but he didn't dare to make a sound. He guessed what the fruit was, but he could only swallow his saliva. Because the blood fruit couldn't be measured by price. Moreover, William Blackleaf was a neutral lord. He had a lot of trusted subordinates, and he didn't lack money. Brian didn't intend to buy the blood fruit. Moreover, he said that he didn't know where the blood fruit was. If he said that he wanted to buy it, wouldn't he be slapping himself in the face? Annoying others for no reason was not something an outstanding genius would do. Brian pretended that he didn't know anything. He took out some fruits from his space ring and munched on them. He only hoped that he could quickly return home and heal the wound on his buttock. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to eat and fart at the same time. After William finished enjoying the blood fruit, he continued to run. There were many pursuers in the Nightmare Forest. Besides the magical beasts, the devil's dens near the Dark City had to listen to the commands of the Lord of the Dark City. They didn't just have to face the Dark City. They had to face countless dark creatures wandering in the forest. The skeleton soldiers, dark knights, and dark monitor lizards weren't a problem. They couldn't even stop them for a second. But they were afraid that they would be discovered. So William and his companions would burrow into the ground every 3 hours and dig tunnels to hide their tracks. After the Blood Devil and his companions returned in defeat, they were scolded by Osmond for half an hour. They were even beaten up. Then, Osmond gave them some healing potions and comforted them. Then, he asked the Blood Devil to gather enough manpower to continue the chase. The vampires were slapped and thrown a few red dates. They were in a good mood. In particular, they didn't dare to disobey Osmond's orders. They had been adopted by Osmond Lothar since young. Many of their companions had died during their growth, but as long as they could stand out, they were all given the most wonderful first embraces in the world. There was nothing wrong with that. The children who grew up in the Dark City all thought that the blood race was the orthodox race and that the humans were inferior creatures. It could be said that most of the vampires in Darkness City were raised by Osmond Lothar himself. In terms of loyalty, there was no way to pick on them. The Blood Devil and his companions were very respectful to Osmond. They treated him like a father. The father of the vampires was also known as the Ghost Father. William's tunneling strategy allowed him to evade most of the detection. He hadn't seen any dark creatures for 3 days. Even the sense of danger in his heart was gradually disappearing. Now that William had some free time, he started to increase Brian's affinity level. William didn't even have to do much. He just had to pose and chat with Brian. From time to time, he would hear notifications of Brian's affinity level increasing. Butler, according to what you said, your family is very powerful. You have the royal bloodline? William pretended to be shocked, but his eyes were filled with admiration. When Brian saw William's expression, he couldn't help but secretly rejoice. He laughed and said, "This is well known in the Red Fire Kingdom. You don't know that I grew up in the palace. Now, the first prince is like my brother. When he inherits the throne, as long as I can become an epic-titled expert, I will lead my family to become a prince's family." Impressive, impressive. But the crown prince might not inherit the throne. It doesn't matter to me. We're brothers, so I can't harm you. But some people with ulterior motives, you know. William gave him a kind look, as if he was thinking for his brother's sake. Brian was a little touched, and his affinity level continued to increase. But he still smiled and shook his head. You still don't understand the Red Fire Kingdom. The Red Fire Kingdom is a royal family. But because of the martial arts, it's usually passed down to only one person. Most of the time, we don't even have a prince. So there's no need to consider the situation of fighting for the throne. When the royal family doesn't have a prince, they will adopt a male from the Red Fire family and make him the crown prince. So our relationship is very good. Even if others hear this, they will understand what is going on. William pretended to be enlightened and nodded. But he thought to himself, maybe it's intentional, because kingdoms and empires all have ways to test one's endowment. His Royal Highness had once discovered a secret, which was that in some powerful families, the males of the family would be tested for talent almost at the moment of birth. If the endowments were poor and did not reach the expectations of the elders, they would not let the male live. They would tell the mother that her son was unlucky and died at birth. This way, not only would it not waste the family's resources, but it would also not drag down the potential of the family's bloodline. If every family and every royal family carried out a survival of the fittest selection method, only the best males would be left to inherit the bloodline. Then, they would choose an outstanding spouse for their children. Then, they would not need to persist for tens of generations. They only needed to persist for tens of generations. Then, from then on, how strong would the bloodline potential of their children be? There would not be any weaklings, okay? Because their genes could be said to be perfect. For example, the royal princes and princesses of the 3 human empires. They were all legendary and epic. This was not achieved by piling up resources. Instead, they were produced by the survival of the fittest. When William thought of this, he suddenly understood why it was so difficult to breed elves. When the elves were still small tadpoles, they had probably started to play the survival of the fittest game. This game lasted for 10 years. As for the human empires and kingdoms, would it cause the population to be less prosperous? Actually, it was possible, after all, after tens of generations, the population would become more and more prosperous. But when the forest was big, there were all kinds of birds. When the population increased, there might be some dregs. As for the powerful families, whether they would still kill such children depended on the mood of the family elders and clan leaders. Chapter 268. Just as William was fleeing for his life, the players of the City of Dawn began to miss their prince. It was because the other NPCs were so troublesome. Currently, the players of the City of Dawn were carrying out 2 missions. One was the endless exploration of the sea. The other was to help the Slowland Dukedom defeat the dark creatures and rebuild their homeland. 2 S-rank missions were supposed to be the kind where one could eat and drink well. But the players were used to William leading the charge while they followed behind to kill the defeated enemies. But now they discovered that not all NPCs treated them well, and not all NPCs were brave enough to charge. Not all NPCs cared about their lives and death. Many times, if William sent them to their deaths, there would be an additional mission reward to replenish their lost experience and equipment. But in the Slowland Dukedom, no matter whether it was the king who had lost his country or the nobles, they could only be described with one word: stingy. They only had one main storyline mission reward per day. Although it was quite a lot, it was much more than some mercenaries, and it was the same as their foreign friends, but it was better than being under William's command. The tens of thousands of players in the Slowland Dukedom missed William even more. They were like good men who had not seen their wives for a few months but were still very self-controlled. Now they were unable to endure the hunger and thirst, but compared to the players in the Slowland Dukedom, the 15,000 players who left with the fleet were better off. They had followed the fleet and seen many sea beasts, small islands, and some terrifying deep-sea monsters. If the 2 ships of the fleet did not have cannons and the giant dragon's intimidation, they would have been wiped out in the sea. It took them half a month to do so. Finally, with Captain Jack's bad luck, they found the Merman Island. That was right. This island was not small, and there were many magical beasts on the mainland. But there were large merpeople living in the sea by the seaside. They were about 1:3 to 1:5 meters tall, which was similar to the average height of the dwarfs. The fleet was often attacked when they landed, and the small merpeople had the geographical advantage. They fought an extremely difficult landing battle. Not only did they have to face the merpeople on the shore, but they also had to defend against the merpeople that came out of the sea. But fortunately, the 2 epic warships had cannons. The 2 fleets placed all the cannons on one side, and hundreds of cannons roared at the same time. The white beach was instantly covered by the cannons and turned pitch black. The magically enhanced cannons caused unimaginable damage and psychological trauma to the large merpeople. This group of trident-wielding murlocs were immediately dumbfounded because they had never seen cannons before. Their hearts were filled with fear. After a few rounds of cannon fire, tens of thousands of little manfish were killed, and the rest of the little fellows scattered in all directions. The players were the first to land and started fighting with the small merpeople who did not want to leave their homes. In short, it was more like an invasion of primitive people. Anyway, the 2 S-level missions of the players were not easy. There were still hundreds of thousands of dark creatures left in the Slovan Empire. The players of the City of Dawn were the main force. The players cursed at the NPCs all day long, saying that their rewards were not enough. There were only of the dawn of Royal of Knights. There of dawn of the of Knights of the Royal of Ro Kingdom of King. Of currently, apart from the Imperial Guard Corps, which still had over 1,000 people, the rest of the corps could only form a total of 5 corps. This was the foundation of the country. How would they dare to use it to fight against the dark creatures? If they wanted to restore their country, They could only rely on mercenaries and the temple knights who came to help. However, there were so many players in the City of Dawn. Even though the rewards for each player were not enough, what would happen if all of them were to be pooled together? It was an astronomical figure every day. If it weren't for the fact that the king and the nobles were united, they wouldn't have been able to afford the players' rewards. Changli Jioga and the other professional players did not participate in the two main missions. Their hearts were as clear as a mirror. The S-rank mission seemed to have a good reward, but they had already seen through the essence of it. Without His Highness, the so-called S-rank mission would not earn much. It would only bring some benefits to ordinary players. For professional players like them, who already had a full set of gold equipment after reaching the intermediate level, they should be working hard for dark gold, epic, or even legendary equipment. Hence, they set their sights on the undeveloped Stormy Island. Do you see that? I told you that Stormy Island must have something special. Chu Liuqiu smiled and pointed at the huge mural at the bottom of the canyon. He also pointed at the temple gate that was guarded by the soldiers of the City of Dawn. Gosh, what's that? What a big gate. What's that? I've lost my insight. Everything is a question mark. Changli Jioga's eyes were about to pop out. He could not figure out what the ancient ruins were. Xiao Ayan pouted. His Highness has already discovered the things below. Or perhaps, His Highness is here for the ruins. It's useless for us to keep thinking about it. Why don't we find some magic potions to sell to the NPCs? That'll be profitable. Chu Liuqiu licked his lips and nodded. That's right. Magic potions are very valuable to the NPCs. They can help them with their training and have other better effect. Furthermore, some rare magic potions can permanently increase the attribute. This is also good stuff for us. The experience and rewards from the main mission are nothing to us. Anyway, half a year isn't enough for us to reach the advanced level. In addition to the demons that we've killed along the way, we might be able to gather a set of epic equipment in half a year. By now, the major clubs had already done their calculations. Intermediate professionals required a lot of experience points. At the end of version 2.0, they could at most reach level 60. However, before version 2.0 ended, there would be a global competition. At that time, the chances of winning would not be determined by a few levels of attribute. The key was equipment, skills, and understanding of the game. Hence, the major clubs all over the world were planning a plan to maximize the profits for their professional players. The two major clubs in the City of Dawn, Glory and Golden Age, relied heavily on Stormy Island. As for the new clubs, they would slowly follow them. Anyway, the professional players' skills were already top-notch. A few of them could rely on their equipment, skills, hidden occupations, and techniques to defeat some intermediate magical beasts. They could even challenge advanced magical beasts. As such, whether they sold the materials of advanced magical beasts or made them into equipment, they would definitely make a profit. There was an even more important reason for this. Some of the club's management discovered the difference between Stormy Island and the Fishmen Island through the live broadcast of the players. The magical beasts and creatures on the Fishmen Island were common. The things on Stormy Island were all very rare. It could even be said that Stormy Island had been separated from this world for at least a few thousand years. Hence, there must be many secrets. Even if William, the city lord, had found the big benefits, the small secrets were enough to make the professional players suffer. Stormy Island was the first to appear, so many ordinary players thought that Stormy Island was not a big deal. Hence, they did not pay much attention to the resources on Stormy Island. The professional players knew this little secret. Some high-level players also knew this little secret, but no one was willing to share it. They wanted to obtain enough resources on Stormy Island. Hence, they revealed everything. When the ordinary players completed the 2S level missions, they would play with the remaining resources. 5 to 6 days passed. William and his companions did not encounter the pursuit of the vampires. But what was destined to come would come. This time, the Blood Devil brought along more Blood Shadow assassins. There were as many as 20 advanced assassins. But they were fortunate. Recently, William had been trying to increase his affinity with Brian. 2 days ago, he struck while the iron was hot. In order to increase his affinity to 800 points, he gave Brian a drop of life potion to detoxify the poison. Brian had revived on the spot. His buttocks had been restored to their original exquisite state. His combat power had been restored. Hence, there were 20 Blood Shadow assassins. There were 3 legendary, 6 epic, and other grandmasters. They were going to face 5 legendary bosses who were in their best state. William smiled as he held the Sword of Hex. He looked at the Blood Devil, who had changed his weapon. He could not help but laugh. "Oh, you have a mind. You can change a top-notch weapon just because you want to? None of your business." The Blood Devil narrowed his eyes. He held a pitch-black longsword in his hand. It was the weapon that the Lord of the City had used when he was still an intermediate. The Lord of the City, who was like a father to him, had given this weapon to him. It proved how much he trusted William. He had to kill William with his sword. No. And the guy whose buttocks were injured would also die here. When he thought of this, he became angry. He had been fooled. The guy in front of him was the Lord of the City of Dawn. The one whose buttocks were injured was Brian's Scarlet Flame. But both of them were going to die. It was not a big deal. He did not believe that the 5 people in front of him could escape from his pursuit. The Blood Devil waved his hand. "Kill them. Leave no one alive." At that moment, the rest of the people surrounded William and attacked the 4 people behind him. The Blood Devil wanted to fight William alone. He had to avenge his humiliation. The Blood Devil was in a good state. He used his space endowment to appear in front of William. He slashed his sword down ferociously. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At that moment, William felt goosebumps all over his body. Hence, he sneered and lifted his left hand to grab the sword. Swish. The Blood Devil knew that there was something wrong with his left hand. He did not give William a chance to grab his sword. He teleported again and appeared behind William. 2 sounds of flesh being pierced could be heard. Both of their weapons pierced into each other's bodies. Swish. Blood splattered in midair. They pulled out their weapons at the same time. They started the most bloody melee battle. Both of them had the intention to kill each other. The Blood Devil kept using his blood control skill. He kept stabbing his sword into his opponent's body. William gritted his teeth. He did not care about the blood vessels in his body exploding. He wielded his 2 legendary weapons and slashed the Blood Devil until he was beyond recognition. But it was just 5 minutes. The Blood Devil was shocked again. It was because William had become stronger. Or rather, his defense was at least twice as strong as it had been a few days ago. What the hell was going on? Weren't William a ranger? Weren't William an advanced professional? Why was his skin harder than a Grandmaster professional's? Come and kill him. The Blood Devil could not take it anymore. William's magic scrolls seemed to be free. He wanted to ask if William had an enchanter in his family. Did he have nothing better to do, so he made magic scrolls for him? And he was furious. Chapter 269. William did not know what the Blood Devil was thinking. Otherwise, he would definitely tell him that he had a house elf. No, it was a house enchanter. Ever since he had built the City of Dawn, he had never lacked magic scrolls. Remember, he did not lack any type of magic scrolls. The only thing he wanted was forbidden spells, but Moses would never give them to him. Other than that, Moses treated the other magic scrolls as if they were free. He would throw them at William with disdain. In particular, the favorability between the 2 of them had already reached 950 plus, and was about to reach the mysterious 1,000 favorability points. Was this something that could be easily guessed by others? However, William had given them the Fire Dragon magic crystal, countless dark creature corpses, and various magical materials, This was definitely a very sad story. William crushed another magic scroll and charged at the blood devil and the rest with his sword. He did not care that they were working together. He targeted one of them and gave him a good beating. For a moment, fresh blood splattered. The sword flashed. The sound of metal colliding resounded. William was as fast as lightning. Every step he took was calculated precisely. He ensured that he received the least amount of damage while dealing the most damage. It was said that vampires had higher agility, but it depended on who they were compared to. The basic attributes of William, a half-elf, were not inferior to anyone else. When he used the power of the Saint Spirit, all his attributes increased by 23%. Coupled with the 88% legendary bloodline power, William's attributes at level 80 had increased by 111%. What did this mean? His current attributes without any equipment were so abnormal that it was unimaginable. Power: 1424 physical strength, 660 agility, 1532 intelligence, 647. There was nothing wrong with that. After his power and agility were doubled, they both reached 1400 plus. Even his weakness had reached 600 plus. Now, when William walked by, he was just a phantom in the eyes of the weaker vampires. When they swung their weapons, they would only see an afterimage. Power was equal to 0. 5 attack power. The inertial acceleration produced by agility would also produce additional hidden attack power. In addition, William had the legendary weapon in his hand. Battle energy and thunder attribute superimposed damage. Basically, the lowest damage that William could inflict was 1,700 points. The vampires that surrounded him could not withstand such an exaggerated amount of damage. William easily slashed them with his sword. Their health points dropped significantly. Could almost be said. Apart from legends of the same level, even 3 to 5 epic bloodline professionals of the same level would not be enough for him to kill. The higher the level, the more prominent William's legendary bloodline was. The next moment, he stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Dozens of lightning bolts pierced through the forest above his head and fell straight down. One of the unlucky vampires was careless and was immediately struck into a state of paralysis. William stepped forward and unleashed a long and narrow sword energy that flashed with lightning, instantly chopping off the vampire's head. Are you kidding me? His defense is so strong and his damage is so crazy? Blood Devil inhaled a breath of cold air. He had slashed William more than 10 times, but William was still full of energy. It was obvious that William had not suffered any serious injuries. However, the death of just one subordinate was nothing to worry about. The blood demon raised his hand slightly. The other two saw his gesture and used the blood manipulation technique at the same time. Bang bang bang, a series of muffled explosions rang out. William's face flushed red as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Even his eyes were bloodshot. But this seemingly serious injury was weakened by the magic scroll, so it did not cause too much damage. His health points were still above 20,000. Although his internal organs were severely injured, some of the key blood vessels, arteries, and capillaries under his skin were still stable. The body of steel was not just a layer of skin. The flesh and blood under his skin were also like steel and iron. However, the only weakness was his internal organs. This also meant that the blood manipulation technique had been weakened by 50% under the defense of the body of steel and the magic scroll. Hand of Soul. William was not a player who only took hits and did not attack. He suddenly stretched out a huge transparent palm and instantly grabbed a vampire who was wandering at the side. The moment he pulled the vampire over, he grabbed him and turned him around to deal a wave of friendly damage. Then, his left hand pierced through the vampire's chest. He crushed the heart with one grip. The eyes of the vampire in front of him widened. It did not matter if his heart was crushed. He could still recover. He wanted to show an expression that said, I can still be saved, but he was now in a state of near death. William used a sacrificial skill and forcefully pulled out a soul shadow from the terrified mind of the old man in the next second. The soul dissipated and transformed into crystal clear white light that slowly entered William's body. William's injuries were recovering at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. What is this? Blood Devil and the other vampire could not help but be stunned. Why was the Lord of the City of Dawn so much stronger than 2 days ago? It was not just a matter of being able to take hit. He was able to take hits, was perverted, and could recover health points. William casually threw away the already dead vampire. He did not want to say that his group attack was more powerful, especially when he liked to have minions by his side, so he looked at Blood Devil and coldly laughed. Come on, my injuries have recovered. If you are so capable, suck my blood. Let's see who is faster. D*MN, I can't take it anymore. Blood Ghost, Blood Shadow, let's kill him together. Blood Devil asked the others to hold back Burn Cinder and the others. He wanted to gather the 3 most powerful Blood Shadow assassins and kill William in advance. William was slightly shocked, but he still activated his battle energy shield. He did not panic in the face of danger, because Blood Devil, Blood Shadow, and Blood Ghost were not only notorious in his previous life, but they were also extremely difficult to deal with legendary bosses. But since they were famous, it was inevitable that William knew them very well. It was also inevitable that after they died, they became a dungeon that had been raided by the players countless times. It could be said that, besides the fact that William could not predict or evade blood control, he also knew that these 3 guys were perverted enough to wear the same underwear with a small bat printed on it. As for some of the big moves in their hands, it was even more traceable. And as an assassin, the scariest thing was that someone knew you very well. If that happened, it would be a joke to kill someone without them knowing. Therefore, when William faced the 3 of them, he pursued his battle instincts. He chose the best time to use the most critical skills, the most suitable position, and the most effective move. Burn Cinder and the others did not feel any pressure when facing the epic and grandmaster bloodlines of the same level. The only problem was that they were being held back and could not help their prince for a short period of time. But now William was showing off his skills. It could be said that he was dancing on the tip of a knife. Brian's Scarlet Flame's titanium alloy eyes were almost blinded by William's actions. Gosh, he dodged that? Gonlin, how did he know that Blood Shadow would appear in his shadow? How is that possible? I fought with Blood Ghost for a long time, but I can't tell how he became invisible. Has Prince William been hiding his strength? Diablo and the others were dumbfounded. They kept thinking, and the more they thought about it, the more afraid they became. They did not expect Prince William to be so strong. But he was still hiding his strength? Was this the limit of his true strength? Or maybe not. That's just 2F** King Awesome. Chapter 270. The 3 gay blood devils were on the verge of breaking down. Not only was William resistant to attacks, but he also recovered quickly. He also had godly prediction abilities. They did not dare to look directly into William's eyes. This was because they always felt that they had been seen through and seen through. Even their little secrets and ultimate moves had been clearly seen through by him. Furthermore, William had seen through the 3 of them's homosexual activities. For some unknown reason, the 3 of them had this feeling in their hearts. We can only use blood control, but he still has magic scrolls. The Blood Devil was on the verge of breaking down. He and his 2 companions looked at each other. They could only choose to retreat. It was not that they could not continue fighting. If they continued fighting, their hearts would break down. William had become a demon in their hearts. This would be detrimental to their future growth and breakthroughs. They would avoid William as much as they could. They would find another day to take revenge. That was how the Blood Devil comforted himself. As for the words, "I can be destroyed, but not defeated," it was enough for them to hear. There was only a way out if they were alive. If they were dead, there would be no way out. They could only bathe in the Styx River. Moreover, he wanted to wait. When he broke through to the Grandmaster level and had a qualitative change in his strength, he would definitely take William's head. Hence, the Blood Devil decisively waved his hand and chose to retreat. At the same time, he shouted, "I'll let you off. But the next time you enter the Nightmare Forest, you'll die. The territory of the Emerald Grand Duchy is not a place for outsiders to invade." William glanced at Brian Scarlet Flame, who seemed to be deep in thought. The corners of his mouth twitched. The Blood Devil was not a joke. He was trying to kill the Emerald Grand Duchy. However, when he saw that the Blood Devil was about to leave, he became unhappy. He took a few steps forward and said, "Since when did the Nightmare Forest belong to the Emerald Grand Duchy? That's none of your business. If I say so, then so be it." William laughed and said, "You said you'll let us off, but I don't intend to let you off. Have I been in the Nightmare Forest all this while? I haven't left yet." The Blood Devil narrowed his eyes. "If His Majesty did not send me a message, I would have killed you. Let's go." Then he snorted and led his companions to transform into bats, disappearing into the sky. There were a few reasons why they left so quickly. The Nightmare Forest was close to the Redfire Kingdom. Who knew if Brian Scarlet Flame had found any reinforcements? If they really thought that it was a Grandmaster or even an epic-titled powerhouse, then they would definitely die. In any case, they would definitely lose the love of the Oni Father. Furthermore, Blood Devil and the others were geniuses, and every genius had their own pride. The three of them had joined forces, but they couldn't defeat William for a long time. William had even seen through their plan. This was a huge blow to them. Being indecisive was what a woman should do, and running when it was time to run was what a real man should do. What do you mean by not fearing death? QTMB, we vampires do not have such principles. Especially now, there was no need to rush revenge. The three of them had great potential, and there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. Moreover, Blood Devil didn't believe that William would always have a group of powerful people following him. When the prince saw them leave, he frowned slightly. He relied on the Sword of Curses to recover his HP. If he couldn't hit someone, he wouldn't be able to recover. Under normal circumstances, his HP recovery rate was only 50% of his constitution. In other words, he could recover 300 HP per second. But it was not enough in the face of such a fierce attack. Unless he used the life potion, it would be a huge price to pay. They're gone. They're finally gone. Brian heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally seen the strength of William and his companions. Whether it was Burned Cinder, Diablo, or Whales, they had their own specialties. Under certain circumstances, none of them was weaker than Brian. William Blackleaf, the Lord of the City of Dawn, had impressed him. Originally, Brian thought that William's strength was only average and about the same as theirs. But now, it seemed that William was obviously stronger than them. Brian's admiration for William continued to increase. His affinity with William was also slowly increasing. It had been a long time since he had seen a man who was stronger than him. William sensed Brian's gaze and smiled. Oh, that gaze. Is it the feeling of first love? Brian hurriedly shook his head. He was straight. His fiancée was the princess of the neighboring kingdom. How could he have such feelings for a man? Could it be? Brian suddenly looked at William. His eyes, mouth, and nose. He could not help but swallow his saliva. Could it be that he's a woman disguised as a man? I have to say, some female elves of the elven race seem to have such a hobby. Brian, who had his butthole exploded, suddenly fell into a reverie. William did not care about Brian. He did not know what Brian was thinking. Otherwise, he would definitely beat the sh*t out of Brian and make his butthole explode again. William was thinking about how to deal with the power of the Dark City in the future. The Blood Devils must have recognized me. Or rather, they know that I have the blood essence of the Blood Dragon map. Otherwise, they must have come for the blood fruit. William quickly thought of this. In this magical era, many secrets were no longer secret. In the face of strange magic, many secrets were no longer secret. Back then, Osmond Lothar had slowly become the lord of the Dark City and eventually the king of the vampires. He had not only relied on luck. He must have had something that others did not know. William did not know that an old fortune-teller was hiding in Osmond's lair. That old man was cunning. Even when Osmond was killed by the plot in William's previous life, the old man did not appear. Naturally, William did not know about this hidden plot. But now there was an obvious situation. The Dark City's affinity with William had decreased by 25,000 points. It seemed that the blood fruit alone could not achieve such a result. That should be the blood essence of the Blood Dragon map. But this meant that after the players of the City of Dawn came to Emerald Grand Duchy, if they entered the Nightmare Forest to fight monsters, they would inevitably have conflicts with the Dark City. Dawn and darkness? TSK. They were really fated. But then again, William did not have to worry about the players. He suddenly understood. It would be 2 years before the players would come online again. Why was he worrying so early? Perhaps when the players came online, William would have cleared the game in version 3.0. Thinking about this, the prince could not help but twitch his mouth. This is really hard to say. Although my leveling speed will be much slower after the players leave, I know a lot of quests. As long as I complete all of them, I will definitely be able to become a Grandmaster in 2 years. While William was thinking, Brian suddenly strutted over and patted William's shoulder. But William shook his shoulder in disgust. But this only deepened Brian's suspicions. So he said, "The Red Fire Kingdom is my territory, and I'll treat you. We'll eat, drink, and be merry. The best restaurant in the city, the most exciting massage bath, and the brothel with the most beautiful women. Are you interested?" Ahem. Wales coughed twice. He glanced at Brian. He did not think that he could afford to treat Brian. After all, he had not paid the 4 of them with magical stones. Brian noticed that he was being looked at with disdain and immediately said angrily, Come. I'll pay 12,000 magical stones now. When we reach the Red Fire Kingdom, if I say it's a dragon, then it'll be a dragon. If you can eat me up, I'll give it to you." Once he said that, the eyes of Burned Cinder and the others lit up. The 3 of them said, "You must keep your promise. Let's go." Brian glanced at the calm William. Just as he was about to say something, William coughed and said, "I'll pass. As long as I'm full, I'll be satisfied. Anything will do?" "Yes, anything will do. As long as it's available in the Red Fire Kingdom, you can eat whatever you want," Brian said shamelessly. William beamed and said, "That's great. I haven't eaten dragon meat for a long time." Yes. Dragon heart meat. I like to eat fire dragons." Burned Cinder licked his lips. Wales hurriedly said, "Earth dragon, I'll make it clear. I want the meat of an earth dragon. I haven't eaten it before." Diablo glanced at Brian, whose face had darkened. He patted Brian's shoulder to console him. "I'm not good at food. Just find me 100 beautiful women to spend the night with. Pfft, are you crazy? Do you want to die?" The corners of Brian's mouth twitched. "No, I'm just invincible." Diablo sighed nonchalantly. As a metal element warrior and mage, he could control the metal elements in his body. He would not fall even if he wanted to. But this sentence of his. Instantly, Wales and Violent Dragon dispelled their evil intentions. After all, going to a brothel with Diablo would definitely boost Diablo's morale and diminish their own prestige. Another 2 days passed. The 5 of them finally arrived at the border of the Red Fire Kingdom. When they arrived at a large city, they rode on flying magical beasts. It took them a few hours to reach the Red Fire Kingdom. This was the first time William and his companions rode on tamed flying magical beasts. The types of flying magical beasts that were tamed by the human empires and kingdoms were similar. The most expensive and rare flying magical beasts were the dragons and phoenixes, which were battle mounts. As for the flying magical beasts that were specialized in transporting humans, the most powerful one was the strategic-level colossal whale. The colossal whale was born with the ability to fly. It was born in the clouds when it was young. It survived by devouring magic and various microorganisms. It could carry thousands or even tens of thousands of people. The colossal whale could be more than 10,000 meters long. It looked terrifying, but it was very gentle. As long as one did not provoke it, the colossal whale would not care about other mosquito-sized creatures. But if he really provoked it, it would be furious. Even a great dragon might not be a match for it. The second type of magical beast was the winged bird, which had 3 pairs of wings and a body length of tens of meters. It could carry many people on its back. Its combat power was low, but it could fly very fast. There were also other magical beasts such as eagles and various birds. As for the griffins, after these magical beasts were tamed, those with lower bloodline potential would be used as transportation tools, while those with higher bloodline potential would be used as mounts by the warriors. They arrived at the Red Fire Kingdom's capital. Brian did not bring them to have fun. Instead, he immediately brought them into the palace to complain to Uncle King. Chapter 271. The capital city of the Red Fire Kingdom was called Fire City. This city was huge. It was 6 times the size of the City of Dawn, and there were nearly 5 million people living in it. Apart from the civilians who originally lived here, there were also many outsiders, mercenaries, demon hunters, some gangsters who dominated the market, and even some demons who hid in the dark. This situation could be summed up in 4 words. It was a mixture of good and bad people. Or rather, wherever there were people, there would be conflict. The bigger the city, the harder it was to manage. As time passed, the guards of the city changed from generation to generation. As the capital had not experienced war, the guards became lazier and greedier. They did not have to do anything themselves, and they could still reap benefits. They would let other professionals do the work. But this was the large cities of the human empires and kingdoms. Basically, as long as there were more than 1 million people in the city, it would be the same. For example, a new city like the City of Dawn had not reached its decadent stage. It was still in its growth period. Every soldier was motivated, but no one could predict the future. Moreover, because the cities of the human kingdoms were too large, in order to prevent the entire city from becoming stinky, the underground facilities were also very complete. At the very least, they would not look like some of the smaller dukedoms that looked horrible, where the streets were filled with feces and urine, and the stench was overwhelming. However, due to the accumulation of time, the kingdom's king city would not fall for a long time, and the underground facilities it possessed were slowly becoming more and more complex. The underground of this city was very suitable for some unlucky homeless people, as well as some murderers and fugitives. But the guards of the capital thought that the underground tunnels were too disgusting. Unless there was an order from a powerful noble, they would not inspect the underground tunnels. But this gave many dark creatures a chance to sneak in. Of course, William did not have to be like before. He did not have to go into the sewers all day to solve problems that the NPCs did not want to deal with. Actually, when the players joined the camp of the kingdom, their first mission was to deal with the dirty things in the sewers. Not many things could be found in the sewers of the major cities of the kingdom. There were all kinds of criminals, dark creatures, assassins, and devils. There were hundreds of thousands of them. But this was the capital city. There were super experts with epic ranked titles living above them. They could only cause trouble in the dark, and such powerful existences wouldn't care about such small matters. For example, how could William, the city lord, have the time to deal with the petty thieves in the city? How could he have the time for the sake of EXP? The players of the past didn't care about how disgusting the sewers were. They could adjust their EXP to be mosaic, or even green HP, and rush down to kill. After completing the quest, they could continue to farm monsters. There were even some players who wanted to experience the feeling of reality. They even forced themselves to do missions with 999% realism. The scene was extremely hardcore. William arrived at the Fire King's city. When he saw the scenery, he suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. He followed Brian and entered the palace without any obstructions. Only then did he gradually recover. There was nothing wrong with that. After being cheated by the Emerald Grand Duchy in his previous life, he came to the Crimson Fire Kingdom in version 4.0 and found a legendary hidden class there, which laid a solid foundation for him to become a legendary warrior. Old Leather, I suddenly miss you. William smiled. Old Leather was the teacher who had taught him the hidden occupation. Now, he was almost at the level of a master. But in the future, he would also be a legendary warrior with a legendary title. But I have to say, you're the one who helped me, and you're the one who cheated me. William sighed. As his teacher, Old Leather had wandered around after becoming a legendary. In the end, he was caught in a chaotic battle with many factions. The situation was very dangerous. Although William was only a player, he didn't want to see his teacher die on the spot. Moreover, he was a legendary warrior. Although the difference between a player and a legendary NPC was huge, he was still at the legendary level. He could cause damage to a legendary professional. In order to save Old Leather, he had fought for a few days. He was in a state of excitement. But because of this, his teacher was not dead, but he was dead. He was dead. He was mentally dead. He didn't know if Old Leather had missed him, or if Old Leather had completely forgotten him and wandered around. Where is the justice? William wanted to ask. But in this life, if he didn't turn Old Leather into Young Leather and bully him, he wouldn't feel comfortable. That's right. Based on the way I tricked you in the past, if I don't trick you again, I'll change my surname to yours. William snorted in his heart. He remembered many of Old Leather's secrets, as well as the secrets that only he knew. If William tricked him in this life, Old Leather would probably kneel down and surrender. That was right. Old Leather was a shameless professional. He would go wherever there were benefits. If something bad happened, he would immediately hide 100 kilometers away. But he didn't understand the last situation. Not only did he get himself into trouble, but he also caused the death of William, a player. Brian led them through the long corridor of the palace. The place was heavily guarded. There was a sentry every 5 steps. All the sentry guards were advanced professionals. Many rangers were hiding in the dark, aiming their bows and arrows at them. There were even many cannon gunners aiming their heavy weapons at them. So when they walked through the palace, they felt a sense of danger. But the sense of danger wasn't too strong. It was just a warning. It wasn't malicious. William wasn't afraid that Brian would trick him. After all, data was the truth. Brian's 830 points of affinity for William weren't fake. They followed Brian, who was familiar with the place. They walked through the plaza of the palace that was covered with fire jades. After passing through a few corridors, they arrived at the back garden in the deepest part of the palace. When William saw this, he couldn't help but sigh. Brian's treatment was similar to that of a prince. When the royal guard saw him, they would nod slightly to greet him. In the eyes of those who didn't know, this wasn't normal. Because they were royal guards. Even if they were facing nobles and marquises, they wouldn't nod or smile. The royal guards were loyal to the royal family. But this also proved that Brian wasn't bluffing. When he arrived at a pavilion, he saw 2 men playing chess at the same time. William also recognized the 2 of them at a glance. The middle-aged man on the right was the current king of the Red Fire Nation, Vikru Red Flame. The young man on the left was the former son, Shirak Red Flame. Brian, you're back? Did you get the blood fruit? Are you hurt? Shirak and Brian had grown up together, and they were like biological brothers. When Shirak saw Brian, he respectfully greeted his father before standing up and asking, No, but I almost died. Uncle, please avenge me. I was almost killed by the Emerald Grand Duchy. I don't know where a group of vampires came from, but they chased me for hundreds of miles. If it weren't for my friends, I would have died. You will really, really die, Brian said solemnly. When King Vikru heard the word uncle, he couldn't help but feel sad. But he still smiled amiably and said, "Don't worry. Emerald Grand Duchy did it. I'll ask them to send someone to apologize. By the way, who are these friends of yours?" Vikru looked at William and his companions curiously. He couldn't help but be curious. The young fellows in front of him were young, but their auras were extraordinary. He didn't know their endowments and potential, but they shouldn't be too bad. Should he keep them and breed with them? Not good. No one knew what King Vikru was thinking. Brian glanced awkwardly at William and his companions. Then he hurriedly said, "These are my new friends. You know about the City of Dawn in the southeast corner, right? He's the city lord, William Blackleaf. They are Burned Cinder, Diablo, and Wales." "Uncle, I'm not bragging. William and his companions are really powerful. They beat up a group of advanced vampires, and they're only slightly weaker than me." "Lord of the City of Dawn? William Blackleaf?" Vikru was even more curious. The only lord of the City of Dawn who had defeated the Darkness Invasion was this young fellow in front of him. This was interesting. When William heard Vikru say the words Lord of the City of Dawn, he knew that Vikru had helped him out of his predicament. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how to face King Vikru. What if he was Brian's friend? Wouldn't his status as a neutral overlord drop by a few notches for no reason? Fortunately, Vikru didn't have that kind of bad taste. Or rather, he didn't want to interact with William in a more intimate manner. After all, he was a neutral lord. How many of them were idiots? Except for Brian, who was so stupid and adorably cute. When Vikru met William, he had many suspicions. For example, was William using Brian's identity to interact with him? Was William setting a trap for the vampires to attack Brian while Vikru led his companions to save him? For example, the vampires of Emerald Grand Duchy were up to no good. Were they colluding with William to deceive him? Vikru thought about it for a long time and realized that these things couldn't be hidden from him. If he wanted to investigate, he would find out the truth. But no matter what, Vikru was the king of the Red Fire Kingdom, and he was an ambitious king. He wasn't that childish or gullible. Hence, he had to use his status as a king to face the lord of another power. But, William smiled and bowed to Vikru. He couldn't control his inner thoughts. Beat. Prompt. Vikru Red Flame has generated 130 affinity points with you. William smiled in his heart. His right hand silently formed a V sign of victory behind his back. "Buddy, are you convinced? Are you convinced?" William wanted to say that as long as they weren't enemies, they were brothers. He couldn't increase the affinity points with his brothers. Even the great elder of the Moonlight Elves, who was a sage, couldn't control his inner thoughts. Hence, he didn't want to interact with William. William was an epic professional with a title. How could he struggle? Bah! Impossible. In this life, I, William, will use my looks to charm all the creatures in the gods' world. Chapter 272. With 130 points of goodwill as a foundation, as long as William didn't do anything annoying, King Vikru's goodwill towards him wouldn't drop. Both of them had a pleasant conversation. They talked about the management of the territory, the Darkness Invasion, and the Light faction. With his rich experience from his previous life, William revealed a lot of vague information. He also talked about the direction of the future, which made Vikru's eyes light up. Vikru even asked William how the Red Fire Kingdom should develop in the future. William's words gave Vikru a sense of approval. But he had to say it. What William said was the direction of development of the Fire Kingdom in his previous life. This was also the key reason why William's opinion coincided with Vikru's. Now, His Majesty the King had started to take William seriously. Even though William's power was not a big deal to Vikru. But he had potential. Not only did William have the foresight and strategy that a lord should have, but he also had a group of powerful subordinates with great potential. But Vikru still asked, "The development of the City of Dawn is very interesting. Your territory is safe and secure. In order to continue developing, you have introduced a comprehensive employment model. Do you know that this model has attracted a lot of attention from the neutral lords and some mercenary teams? Now, the mercenary guild is very busy. Many people want the mercenary guild to be their guarantor to show that they are willing to accept such employment. In this way, your advantage will decrease. You will be limited by resources, and the development of your faction will stagnate." William looked at Vikru in surprise. What was Vikru trying to do? Was he thinking about William? Or was he trying to see if William was qualified to be Vikru's partner? William pondered for a while and said in a deep voice, "I know about this. But not every mercenary team has sufficient military training. We can outsource all the tasks related to war, defense, protection, transportation, and garrisons. The key isn't our strength. It's that I have enough control over my subordinate. I won't let them cause any losses to the employer. If it were other mercenary teams, and they had bad records, why would the mercenary guild be their guarantor? Even if they were to be their guarantor, I was the one who suggested this model. Others are still trying to learn and imitate it. I can only say, the City of Dawn will only be imitated, but it will never be surpassed." William paused and continued, "The most important point is that mercenaries are a bunch of fellows who value money more than their lives. It's fine if you want them to start a war. After all, they're all on the battlefield. Even if they cause trouble, they'll still be attacking the enemy. However, if you ask them to do something else, most of the mercenaries might rob their employers and live a happy life in anonymity. Nobody would be able to catch them. But the City of Dawn is different. We have our own territory and we can't escape. Also, if my soldiers really did something wrong, I would have enough money to compensate them." Lanyu Grand Duchy had accepted the City of Dawn's first big mission. As long as the mission was completed and the dark creatures were defeated, I believed that the reputation of the City of Dawn would increase exponentially. The City of Dawn would also receive many missions. However, it is difficult for other mercenary groups to enjoy the same treatment. After listening to William's explanation, Vikru understood. The City of Dawn was a neutral force. It had a territory and a group of immortal chosen ones to carry out war missions. On the other hand, the well-trained legionnaires accepted other missions. As long as they made proper arrangements and did not provoke powerful forces, the City of Dawn, which had the support of the two elves, would have a bright future. In just a few seconds, Vikru made up his mind. He wanted to provide timely help, not icing on the cake. What did the City of Dawn lack? Credibility. Just the protection from the mercenary guild was not enough. A large-scale mission from Lanyu Grand Duchy was not enough to prove anything. The City of Dawn had to complete many missions and have a high credibility and exposure. Only then would the other forces understand that the City of Dawn was a neutral faction that could be trusted. Then, they would hand over some missions that they could not spare. What Vikru had to do was very simple. He immediately issued 10 missions to William. Most of the missions were not too difficult and were within the capabilities of the City of Dawn. The missions included escorting, transporting, guarding the defense line, developing new territories, undeveloped forests, grasslands, etc., collecting information, and so on. When William saw the 10 level A missions, he was ecstatic. It was as if someone had handed him a pillow when he was about to doze off. The missions in front of him could only be completed by intermediate professionals. The difficulty was not high, the risk was not high, and the rewards were not too high. The only shortcoming was that many people were required to complete the missions. This meant that the exposure was high. This was an advantage. Since the City of Dawn was not at war, it did not lack manpower. Even though most of the players were carrying out the 2-level S missions, there were still many players who were idle. It was not just the players. William could also send out regular legions. Currently, the City of Dawn had 100,000 regular soldiers. Every day they spent a lot of money on food and water. Rather than taking care of them, it was better to put them into missions. Not only could they earn a sum of money, but they could also reduce their wastage. The most important thing was that these were employment missions from the Red Fire Kingdom. This represented the trust of the Red Fire Kingdom. The trust of the Red Fire Kingdom was like an advertisement. As long as the City of Dawn could complete these missions perfectly, would the other Grand Duchies ignore the City of Dawn? Absolutely not. William looked gratefully at Vikru and said in a deep voice, "The City of Dawn can accept all these missions. But to avoid wasting time, I'm not sure if we can open a teleportation portal. We can also conduct some business transactions." Of course, this is not a problem. The more trade routes there are, the better. Are there any space mages in the City of Dawn? William smiled and said, "We have a space enchanter. We don't have to trouble the king." When Vikru heard about the space enchanter, he was stunned. He felt a little jealous, but this made him even more determined to invest in the City of Dawn. The benefits were mutual. William had obtained many benefits from Vikru. He had to help solve some problems. The missions given by Vikru were not troublesome in his eyes. He could send out legions to solve them. It was just to give the City of Dawn a chance. Hence, a crucial mission had arrived. Prompt: You have received a mission message. Prompt: The Kingdom's faction mission level, S+. Mission information: The Red Fire Kingdom and the Desert Kingdom have been at war for decades. Unless one of them is destroyed, the war will not end. Prompt: Choose your future faction, the Red Fire Kingdom or the Desert Kingdom. Without a doubt, William could not reject this mission. If he rejected it, not only would Vikru's affinity with him drop to the lowest point, but the mission would also be cancelled. There was no need for him to reject it. In his previous life, the Red Fire Kingdom had won. He decisively accepted this main storyline mission that would take place many years later. Subsequently, both of them looked at each other and smiled. It was obvious that they were trying to be friends. William glanced at his endowment good looks. He could not help but shout in his heart, "I am the king of being friends." Chapter 273. William and Vikru had a long talk for 3 to 4 hours. When the sky turned dark, William happily left with his subordinates. Vikru was full of smiles. He stood up and waved to send them off. William had achieved his main purpose in coming to the Red Fire Kingdom. He had relied on his unparalleled looks and handsomeness to befriend the current king and obtain 10 missions. After they left, Brian had intended to invite them for a one-stop service. But William was an outstanding member and the future successor of the party. How could he be tempted by money and women? Of course not. So he chose to reject them. He said that he wanted to walk around alone. But he did not stop Burned Cinder and the others from freeloading and even staying at the brothel. After all, professionals in this era were like this. They were rich, powerful, and single. If they were not allowed to vent, they would definitely get sick. But William was different. He had a little princess, and the most important thing was that he was a combination of a player and an NPC. Even if he managed to accumulate 1,000 affinity points, he would be too far away to do anything. So what if he managed to accumulate enough affinity points? He was not of age yet. After both parties parted, Brian led a group of fellows to the most popular street in the city, Green Light Street. As the name suggested, a lady working in a brothel. She would probably make many honest people wear green hats in the future. So this street was called Green Light Street by the players. Under the watchful eyes of the city guards, William gradually walked into an old district that was filled with crooks and honest people. This district was exclusive to idle professionals. There were many demon hunters, mercenaries, and even bored temple knights and dark warriors. At the same time, this place was filled with taverns, casinos, and brothels. Anyway, this place was very chaotic and complicated. There were 3 Grandmaster professionals who occupied many shops in the old district and profited from them. Moreover, fights and murders were frequent occurrences here. But those who could fight here, as long as the city guards did not catch any evidence, they would be safe. Even if the guards caught evidence, they would not be able to catch the culprit. As long as they ran into the sewers and hid for a few months or a few years, they could change their appearance and come out. By then, the wanted posters would have been cancelled. Actually, it could be seen from this. How strong was a kingdom? 3 Grandmaster-level professionals could only divide their forces in one of the districts. But in the southeast region, a Grandmaster professional was considered a legendary sword god or warlock saint. Even in the Emerald Grand Duchy, a Grandmaster professional could become a city lord. William planned to follow the memories of his previous life to see if he could meet his mentor, Old Leather. Old Leather's full name was Brant Peter, pure-blooded human, male, unrestrained personality. I like the place to live. Casino. That was right. He lived in the casino, and the underground of the casino was a tavern. Every day he would gamble, get drunk, gamble, and get drunk. As for why he did this, it had a lot to do with his past. However, William was not interested in the name Brent, so he just called him by his surname, or Old Leather for short. Hence, His Royal Highness arrived at a casino called the Royal Jia Omen Casino. Oh, this should be the house. William glanced at the 2 ladies who were welcoming the guests, then he walked into the house and ignored them. The casino was very lively. This casino belonged to a Grandmaster professional. Don't think that it was lowly for a Grandmaster professional in the city to establish a gang in the city. They could only be the boss or second in the city. But the resources and power they possessed were no less than the Grandmaster professionals in the small cities. Some rare training resources could only be found in the Kingdom City. In general, the closer to the center of the continent, the more abundant and rare the resources were. The small places in the southeast region could not compare to it. After William entered the casino, he exchanged for 30,000 gold coins worth of chip. It looked like he was going to make a big bet and make a quick escape. Hence, the staff in charge of exchanging chips quickly informed many dealers to keep an eye on William. They had to make him lose so much that he did not even have his underwear left. But William did not want to win. But he also wanted to make the casino infamous. He walked in the casino and walked around nonchalantly. Then he slowly came to a table where people were betting on big or small. When the dealer saw him walking over, he shouted, "Place your bets, place your bets. Bet on big or small. The small 3 dice have a total of 4 to 10. The big 3 dice have a total of 11 to 17. The leopard 3 dice have the same number on the flat surface." The dealer picked up the dice goo and started shaking it. But after a few seconds, he slammed it on the table and said, "Place your bets." William hesitated for a long time. He gritted his teeth and threw out 5,000 gold coins worth of chip. Big! Many gamblers saw this scene and frowned. They had sensed from the sound that this number was really big. Hence, many people followed suit and placed their bets on big. But one of the guys who was drinking seemed to be able to sense the lingering black gas around William. He chose small. Open the goo!" Someone shouted. The dealer opened the dice. Many people were stunned. The 3 dice had a total of 10. It was not big but small. Actually, when the dealer saw this scene, he was a little dumbfounded. He had clearly shaken the dice as big. He did not use any secret manipulation to make it small. He had intended to let William earn a small sum of money. After all, there were not many novice gamblers who could exchange for 30,000 chip. If he did not let William win first, wouldn't he run away later? Gosh, how can it be small? Damn, is it a secret manipulation? Some of the professionals' expressions gradually turned ugly. But they believed their ears. Hence, they continued to gamble. But no matter how good their ears were and how good the secret instruments were, they could not compare to William's luck, which was won in the next few rounds of gambling. No matter how hard the dealer tried, no matter how good the hearing of the professionals beside him was, but as long as William bet on big, it would definitely lose. If he bet on small, it would definitely lose. If he bet on big plus small, it would be a leopard. Almost after a while, a group of gamblers shouted that the casino was cheating. The dealer was even more incredulous. This was the first time he realized that the dice had its own thoughts. It did not follow his way at all. But William had successfully attracted Brant Peter's attention. He had made a lot of money from William's bad luck. So he walked over and patted William's shoulder. He said in a low voice, "Brother, how about we cheat them? I see that your bad luck is out of this world. Whatever you bet on, you will lose. Why don't we work together? You bet first and I'll bet later. When the time comes, we'll split the money. How about that? Is that good?" William could not help but grin. "In his previous life you said this to him. You're doing it again in this life. Why not?" Old Peter pouted. He was the biggest jinx of this casino. Whatever he bet on, he would lose, hence. Two unlucky people. They started using bad luck to cheat money. William and Leather didn't need to do much. All they had to do was wander around the casino and find the place with the most bet. William would immediately place a huge sum of money on the bet. Even if the number of bets was fixed, it was still guaranteed that they would lose. And old Peter would definitely suppress his opponent and win. It had only been one night. When the people in the casino saw William, they hurriedly ran away. They thought that William was a staff member of the casino and was cheating them of their money. But the dealer started to doubt his life. This guy was also losing money. He made them lose too. What did this have to do with them? How could they say that they were cheating? In the end, William scared away all the gamblers in the casino. He had also counted out all his money. But old Peter had made hundreds of thousands of gold coins. Chapter 274. Get out, get out. Don't come here again. A few professionals nudged William to leave the casino. William was here to give away money. But his method of giving away money was too much. He seemed to be doing it on purpose. Every time he gave away money, he would scam a bunch of gamblers. Even if many people in front of him knew that this person was very unlucky, they still wanted to bet against him. But William did not bet. What could they do? Did they have to stop gambling? But as long as the gamblers placed a large bet, William immediately followed. No matter how hard the dealer tried, he would still lose without a doubt. The other gamblers would also lose their money. But this kind of trick made the gamblers think that the casino was deliberately cheating, and they treated William as a member of the casino. Even though the casino was happy to earn money, they could not let William stay. They had to make him leave the casino. After all, he was too despicable. The staff of the casino had fled in anger. The biggest winner was Brant Peter. As a Grandmaster professional, he was on the same level as the boss of the casino. The other gamblers did not dare to go overboard with him. But Old Leather had already discovered William's shining point. If they continued to cooperate with each other, what casino could handle them? He smiled and walked out of the casino. He said to William, "I'm a man of my words. I've just earned 330,000 gold coins. I'll split half with you. It's 150,000 gold coins. Shall we try at other casinos?" William raised his eyebrows. Were you sure that half of 330,000 gold coins was 150,000 gold coins? But he didn't care. He just shook his head and said, "We'll see. I'm just here to test my bad luck. Back then, I smashed a dozen statues of the goddess of fortune and a few of the goddess of misfortune. I didn't expect my bad luck to be this low." William twitched his lips. He took out a Lady Luck statue from his space ring and smashed it in front of Old Leather. Old Pie was dumbfounded, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. What kind of new class had appeared that required bad luck? And he wanted to smash the Lady Luck's statue as a sacrifice to the heavens? William did not explain. He was here to gain affinity and make the other party pay attention to him. But for this kind of wild NPC, he had to take it slow. After all, he did not have the aura of a king. He could make a grandmaster professional submit to him with just a shake of his body. Moreover, if he wanted to increase Old Leather's favorability, other than his looks, he could only rely on his extremely low luck value. Old Leather had a talent. He could see the bad luck of others, and he could even use the bad luck of others to increase his own luck. Therefore, only existences with lower luck value than him could become friends with him. And he wanted to use this kind of friend to obtain benefits. One could imagine, many of his friends were basically dead, but he was still alive. Old Pie almost died in his previous life. It was because his friends had all died, and there was no one left to support him. This was the reason why he almost died on the spot, but when Old Leather was about to die, William's disciple, a player, successfully died. No one knew if he could save Old Leather hence in the next few days. Diablo and the others continued to follow Brian to the green light street. Every day, they wandered around until their faces turned pale and their bodies grew weak. They didn't know how much combat power they had left, but recently, Brian's complexion was not very good. This was because these guys who followed him not only lasted long, but also had a lot of girls with them. Moreover, they could eat a lot. During this period of time, they had eaten a lot of delicacies, and Brian's wealth had shrunk a little. As for William, he accepted Old Leather's invitation to play in the major casinos. Even the casinos in the old district did not allow them to enter. Until then, William received a piece of news. It was today. The City of Dawn would open a teleportation portal with the Red Fire King's city. He did not look for Old Leather. Instead, he waited beside the teleportation portal with the officials of the Red Fire King. At this time, the teleportation gate was also temporarily closed. Many professionals who wanted to go to other places were waiting here, seemingly wondering which force had opened a teleportation gate with the Red Fire Kingdom again. Not long after, a water curtain appeared on the huge teleportation portal. A figure appeared. The space enchanter, Old Band, was wearing a precious magic robe. He slowly walked out and released his enchanter's aura. Black spatial cracks appeared around him. This caused many people to suck in a breath of cold air. Which faction is this? There's a space enchanter. His aura is very strong. Look, there's an army coming? Someone exclaimed. This was the king's city. How could the army of other factions come here? The quality of the equipment of the army was so good that it made people envious. More importantly, the professionals in front of them were all handsome elves. William had received 10 missions. Therefore, he had to complete it perfectly and resolve it. Therefore, he ordered the elite Elven Legion of the City of Dawn to carry out this mission. There were not many of them. That was because the number of people needed to complete these 10 missions was only 30,000. But even so, when the 30,000 elves appeared in the Red Fire King's city in an orderly manner, they were wearing full sets of intermediate gold equipment. Many people were shocked. They felt like foreigners watching a panda in a zoo. When all of them walked out, Legolas saw William. When Legolas saw William, he strode forward and bowed. The 30,000 soldiers of the Dawn Guardian Legion are here to carry out the mission. Greetings, Lord William. 30,000 elves slapped their chests and saluted in unison, then loudly yelled, "We pay our respects to your highness." At the same time, many people discovered an elven man standing among the officials. He walked out and said, "Get up. Someone will bring you to receive the mission. Perform well." "Yes, Lord William. The Dawn Guardian Legion will complete the mission with our lives." Next, many professionals who were puzzled came to their senses. Oh, so this was the famous Dawn mercenary team in the Mercenary Guild? Gosh, were they sure they were mercenaries? Wasn't this the military quality of a regular army? Even the human armies did not have such military quality. This was the Elven Legion. When many mercenary group leaders saw this scene, they turned around and glanced at the group of mercenary members with uneven equipment. They couldn't help but feel a little sad when they saw their members who were not standing or sitting properly. They felt like dying when they compared themselves to others. These days, mercenary groups were beginning to be regulated and militarized. How were the other mercenary teams going to survive? The 30,000 elves were all intermediate professionals. They had high-quality weapons and equipment. They were definitely stronger than a 100,000 human army of the same level. Were they that strong? And they had become mercenaries. Wasn't it too much? But then again, what mission was the Dawn Legion going to complete? This scene piqued the curiosity of many people. The spies of some forces were silently using magic transmission scrolls. They wanted to find out what kind of agreement the neutral city of Dawn had with the Red Fire Kingdom. They also wanted to know what kind of force the Dawn mercenary team belonged to. William did not care about the gazes of the other forces. He only wanted the City of Dawn to complete missions, gain reputation points, and gain the players' good looks. He also wanted to gain the affinity of the main character NPCs. Now all he could do was wait. Wait for the end of this version. Wait for the magic revival. Welcome the arrival of a new era. Welcome the arrival of the fourth era, which had the greatest changes. Meanwhile, he would participate in the first Magic Conference. Ever since the Magic Revival, the Temple of Light, the Magic Sanctuary, the Palace of Darkness, and the Mercenary Guild had organized a large-scale competition. It was a grand event that he had to participate in. In the first conference, only NPCs could participate because the players had gone offline to update the game. But in the second conference, players could participate together with NPCs. When the time came, the players would truly feel the difference between them and genius NPCs. Chapter 275. Time passed, and it was nearing the end of version 2.0. The City of Dawn had been developing steadily in the second half of the year. Besides fighting against the dark creatures every day, they did not encounter any enemies that were worthy of being called their opponents. The Slovan Kingdom's revival mission to counterattack against the darkness invasion gave the players a sense of victory that they deserved. After all, the City of Dawn's all-out attack did not allow the dark creatures to be arrogant for long. The Chinese players only fought a fast-paced super war in the early stages of the game. Other than that, they did not experience the joy of fighting against the dark creatures. The Chinese players watched the foreign players fight against the dark creatures and posted their daily records. This made the Chinese players very depressed. But after they received the mission to help the Slovan Kingdom revive, the players once again had a reason to talk about the dark creatures. They could even post arrogantly in other countries. Look at the City of Dawn. After we've defeated the dark creatures, we can still help others. None of you have revived your kingdom. Why do you have to put in so much effort? Anyway, the forum was full of arguments and scolding. The Chinese players had a great advantage in version 2.0. If they did not brag all day, they would not be considered players. The Slovan Kingdom revival mission was completed. With the support of the Red Fire Kingdom, the Dawn mercenary team became famous in the southern region. There were many kinds of employment missions. The garrison of any country would receive many missions. This was what William had said. There were so many missions that he did not have enough manpower. He could only hope that the players would grow quickly. The Emerald Grand Duchy and Lan Yu Grand Duchy also started to borrow the power of the City of Dawn. They handed over some missions that they could not spare to the Dawn mercenary team. In the secret war between the two nations, they often hired fearless players to fight a war of attrition. This made it more interesting for the warlike players. The City of Dawn was one of the beginners' villages. Most of the novice players would choose to spawn there. Until today, the total number of Chinese players had reached 1 million. The number of players in the City of Dawn had increased to 880,000, which was 80% of the total population. The other 20% of the players were not distributed to the Black Lava Duchy, which did not have a strong military. Instead, they went to the Emerald Grand Duchy and the Red Fire Kingdom. The number of NPCs in the City of Dawn reached 1.7 million. There were 150,000 regular legions and 50,000 reserve legion. The city continued to expand into the Blackleaf Forest. Now, there were 16 districts with a population of 2 million. This included 200,000 players who owned properties in the City of Dawn. However, the players were always online and offline. They did not stay in the game for long, so the City of Dawn was not too crowded. The novice players chose the City of Dawn as their beginner's village, not only because of the City of Dawn's strength, but also because of the variety of missions available. They could develop on land or in the ocean. There were also many S, A, and A+ grade employment missions. Most importantly, most of the smaller dukedoms didn't even have portals. For the convenience of leveling up, the players would choose the City of Dawn, which was very convenient for transportation. Recently, the City of Dawn had purchased many flying magical beasts from the Red Fire Kingdom. As a result, the City of Dawn had teleportation portals for long-distance travel and flying magical beasts for short-distance travel. The City of Dawn's wealth and power were comparable to that of a Grand Duchy. The players were amazed by the City of Dawn's growth. It was much faster than they had expected. But he had to say it. Ever since William opened the teleportation portals between the City of Dawn and the Red Fire Kingdom, the City of Dawn had made a lot of money. The City of Dawn made a lot of money from the trade between the two countries. Just from the trade with the Red Fire Kingdom, the City of Dawn could earn a net profit of 400,000 gold coins every month. The fishing industry accounted for 1/3 of the income. As the Red Fire Kingdom was a landlocked country, marine life was very rare. The fish caught could not be sold for a high price in the City of Dawn, but they could be sold for more than 10 times the price in the Red Fire Kingdom. In addition, the City of Dawn also had various rare mineral veins. Some minerals like mithril and orichalcum could be used to exchange for ores that the city did not have. This greatly increased the variety of ores in the City of Dawn. Thus, the blacksmiths could create more high-quality attribute equipment. William walked on the streets of the City of Dawn. When the commoners, tourists, and merchants saw him, they would bow respectfully and greet him. And His Royal Highness just needed to keep smiling. Other than the old city, he rarely went to the new city, even though the new city looked better. The magic lights were more fancy, and the surrounding trees and flowers were more beautiful. But the old city was not bad either. William was also a boy with a good sense of aesthetics. He hoped that his territory would look better, so he often asked his subordinates to renovate the city. There were almost 10,000 mages in the City of Dawn. The bored mages would occasionally tinker with some gadgets to decorate the City of Dawn. For example, the magic lights that floated in the sky were like huge kites. Every night they would emit colorful lights. Some simple and practical magic tools could help clean the homes and liberate the labor force. Thus, more women could go to work and contribute to the development of the City of Dawn. For example, some practical magic fans could cool down the commoners in hot weather, so that the construction workers could work more diligently. Of course, all of these also cost money. The magic professionals could research these things not only because of their hobbies, but also because the city lord, who did not engage in proper work, supported them in researching all kinds of advanced technology. Why were there so many magic professionals in the City of Dawn? It was all because of the space enchanter, Old Band. He was the one who attracted so many NPC mages to the city. The magic professionals often admired the strong more than the close combat professionals, because the magic professionals pursued magic and the truth. Someone like Old Band. In the eyes of many magic professionals, Old Band was close to the truth. He was a legend who was about to become a great enchanter. Old Leather, are you cheating money in the casino again? William was wandering around. Version 2.0 was about to end, and he had done all he could. Now, he just had to wait for the recovery of magic, but he still went to the casino to catch Old Leather. Ever since he had tricked Old Leather to the City of Dawn, he had been cheating people in the casino every day. It had affected the economic development of the City of Dawn and the city's appearance. According to the 23rd century Chinese constitution, Old Leather should be executed. But it had to be said. After William's affinity with Old Leather and his identity was revealed, Old Leather, a Grandmaster professional, decided to follow William. It was not only because the City of Dawn was powerful. More importantly, Old Leather liked William. According to Old Leather, he had never seen someone with such low misfortune. When he saw the professionals in the City of Dawn shrouded in black gas, Old Leather was elated. What was this? A concentration camp for unlucky people? But to Old Leather, it was a place where the scapegoats gathered. He even saw someone with the same bad luck as William. It was a pity that Old Leather could not see through the mage, so he could not make use of him for now, but as long as someone had lower bad luck than Old Leather, it would be difficult for him to die. It was especially so for people like William, who were growing rapidly. Old Leather felt that it would not be long before he could follow William around. He could reap the benefits and let others take the blame for him. But he still had to gamble. When Old Leather saw William coming to catch him again, he used his Grandmaster's speed to escape. He went to another casino in another district to waste his time. There were hundreds of casinos in the City of Dawn, and he did not believe that William would have the time to catch him. Ever since William recruited Old Leather as his subordinate, he finally knew the name of Old Leather's endowment. Misfortune transfer. When there is a creature of the same level with lower luck than you, as long as you are within 100 meters of the creature, all misfortune will be transferred to that creature.